All right. What's up? Welcome to another episode of Champagne Sharks. I am now live with Chedda Chaz.
How you doing?
He is a filmmaker and a music artist and a bunch of other shit. He's one of them people. He's like, so what do you do? All of these things. It wasn't
Right.
that. It was like three or four things. I'm just
Yeah.
teasing. But, and you have 7 straight days entertainment. You're the CEO of. I'm guessing founder.
But it's 7 days straight. Yeah, yes, I am the founder of it.
Founder and CEO of 7 Days Straight Entertainment. And we're talking more about that a little bit later. And
Mm.
why you created 7 Days Straight Entertainment, the importance of independence media, Black owned independence media,
Right.
and the role that you want your entertainment company to play. Also, I want to talk about your short film, Pure Heart. And I think people would find that very, very interesting. If you guys, I don't know, are we allowed to show clips? I don't know how
Yeah.
YouTube is. Okay.
I'm not. I'm not sure if you're allowed.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you're not going to flag us, right?
No. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
You have my permission.
okay, so I'll probably show the first couple of minutes of that so people can get an idea of what it is. You did a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
So it's a one-man show, but he does a great job integrating the clips. Did you do all of the editing and stuff yourself, or?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, this motherfucker does everything. Okay, we'll get
Yeah.
into all that later. Shout out to the people that are already on here in the chat. We have 100 people already logged on. Shout out to, I guess that's Columbus. I don't know. I think that's what this says. Also, Harlow, what's up? Harlow says, what's up to you?
What's up?
And all the people in Discord, I see Discord just had made the announcement. Shout out to you guys who are coming in. And if you guys read the description, you guys understand what we're going to be talking about, the power of media. So of course we have to talk to a filmmaker. You can't just talk about media with a person who's on a podcast, right? You got to talk to somebody who's doing film. And he's a great music artist as well. I listen to some of your music stuff. Do you do your own videos? Your videos
Yes.
are also pretty creative. This guy,
Yeah.
look, he's just really talented.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Shout out to Outlaw. Shout out to Winfield. What's up? What's up? This actually something I want to talk about first. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year to you.
And we already starting off a little rough.
Yeah.
We're not even a week in. We're not even done with the first week, and we already have we just found out Doom passed away.
Yeah.
He passed away on Halloween, and we just found out.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, that was really crazy.
That was just like out of no. It's like it was so unexpected. You know what I mean? And then today, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Dr. Dre had a brain aneurysm, and he's in the hospital now. That's terrifying to me because even if he survives it, he won't be the same person.
Oh God.
Yeah, so it's already. So I know a lot of us are very scared about that. I know I am. I'm in LA, so
that's close. That's close to home. That's very close. That's literally home.
You have no idea. And we already lost Nip. We lost John Singleton. We lost Kobe. It's like the Black men out here that are respected out here and from here and all of that. It's like we're losing them.
Right.
And these are like significant people. These aren't
these are Mount Rushmore people.
Exactly. So it's been a rough past few years for LA. So I'm like, why the hell does this have to happen?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I do hope he pulls through. I know for me, Dr. Dre's had a big impact. I don't know. You're a music artist, so I don't know.
Man, I grew up loving Dre. Even I'm from New Orleans, so the West Coast music, we didn't really have close to modern hip hop until later in the 90s. But West Coast artists were our adopted artists, like Bone Thugs. I know they're from Cleveland, but they're West Coast artists to us. Eazy-E and Ice-T. All these artists were regulars in my house. So DJ Quick, so Dr. Dre, that's just synonymous with hip hop to me.
I made that face because a lot of people. So this shocked me. I learned this probably fairly recently. A lot of people don't know who Quick is. I did not.
That's strange.
Right. Well, hell is strange. I met somebody who were even from she was from Portland. She was like, I never heard DJ Quick till you talked about him, and I was like, what?
That's very strange to me.
he's a legend here. But like a lot of people on the East Coast, unless they're into hip hop,
right,
of course, people who are into hip hop, they know,
right,
right?
right.
But like, I mean, just like people who are like maybe casual fans or like or listen to rap, but just don't know all the details. A lot of them don't know who Quick is.
And that's so crazy. I think because Drake cast such a large shadow,
That's
like he's such a, so no one wants to be. I heard Quick say this in an interview once. It's hard being thought of as number two.
But yeah, and they're both from Compton, so yeah.
Yeah, so Quick is dope, and like MC, well, Spice One, was Above the Law. There's so many talented West Coast artists. Like there's tons of talented West Coast artists. Like I'm a huge West Coast hip hop fan. Like you look at my library, there's tons of Ice-T and
No, absolutely. And someone said DJ Quick tonight is a certified classic. How do folks not know? What's up, iSound Info? Also, what's up, Void, Beowulf, and GM Playfair? So this is the thing you have to also remember. Hip hop wasn't always as mainstream as it is now.
Yes.
So unless your music got played also on MTV or pop stations,
right,
you probably weren't going to be as known. DJ Quick was not really mainstream. He might have had a couple of songs hit the charts, but I don't think he has any hip hop like mainstream number ones or top tens in the pop charts. So I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys can look for me. Maybe he does, and I just haven't, researched it.
I think also because of the artists like Quick, and even I saw Cube do this kind of later in his career. Like they tend to, like West Coast artists tend to reach back and like celebrate older artists. Like Quick would work with The Barge. Like he made like great music with The Barge, and he had a, what's the name of that song? Hand in Hand, or he would get he's not an older artist, but what's my man? Not Second to None. It's the guy, he rhymes, he's Sugar Free. Like Sugar Free. Yeah.
First of all, the fact that you struggle with that, I feel like I want to kind of low key punch you in the face, but I'm gonna let it slide.
No, I always get Sugar Free because of the names. I always get Sugar Free and Second to None mixed up because they always work with Quick.
Oh, but, the Sugar Free is
yeah, Sugar Free is dope. Yeah, Sugar Free is dope.
But I think what you were talking about as far as him Quick being considered number 2 in Compton, and that's 100% true. Dre is gonna be number 1.
Right.
Like Dre's impact on music is pretty insane. Like there's so many artists that are grateful to have worked with
Dr. Dre, right. And not, I mean, it is crazy because personally, I think Quick is the doper artist because Quick raps.
Right. And writes his own raps.
And writes his own rap. So I'm a little more inclined to roll with Quick. And Quick is actually a pretty dope rapper.
I think he's one of the best. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, dope rapper, dope producer, consistent music, and
his own sound, his own style.
Yeah, his own sound.
Nobody else sounds like Quick. Even for an LA sound, nobody sounds like Quick.
Right. He's like, he could have easily took the Eazy-E route with the nasally. Well, he could have easily I'm gonna mimic this guy. This is what works. But no, he did his own thing. He kind of put gang culture, from my understanding, on wax in first, like was in the mainstream way. And I just think Quick's incredible. So I didn't know that. I didn't know he wasn't like
I learned it. Man. So this is the thing. I've been in hip hop, grew up in hip hop culture. I used to work in hip hop. So I sometimes forget that unless you're in that space, you don't really know.
Right.
So when I started venturing out, talking to more people outside of my circles, and the people in other places, it was like, what? Quick's not a legend to you?
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
And you're like, really?
Yeah.
So but somebody said in the chat, Dre gave you Eminem though.
Hey.
What were you? So this is the thing about Eminem.
Eminem was dope.
He's M. I think
Yeah.
okay, so Eminem to me is an entertainer, not an artist, so to speak, right?
Okay.
I think he's entertaining. He has interesting stories. He has interesting wordplay, but I don't connect with his music even a little bit. Like the songs I liked from him were just songs that I thought were entertaining, right? Not because I connected with the content. There's nothing. There was no. Yeah, I feel him on this. I experienced that. No, I didn't. You know, I don't have that. I wouldn't grow up in a trailer park. I have no clue what that's like.
When I was a kid, when M came out, we just always thought M was funny. Like we just always thought he was a very
that's what I'm saying.
we thought he was an entertaining guy, and I think Eminem is kind of like if you watch the old and one stuff back in the day, right? He's very he's a very well, and I don't mean that as like I don't mean it as a knock or a slight.
Yeah, you can say that, but think about that though.
No,
and players to do the fucking most and didn't go anywhere.
But yeah, kind of like that. Kind of from the standpoint of this person is extremely talented at this thing, but it's kind of like a novelty. It's kind of like a novelty. Like I can listen to Scarface rhyme at a super slow pace, 2, 3, 4 words, and I'm gonna be like, wow, my mind's blown. How did he put that together? Versus listening to M, who I'm a fan of, rhyme chainsaw with fart and all like it's like that's cool. And that's a skill, that is a skill in and of itself, but it doesn't necessarily relate to certain demographics.
So this is the thing, like you can't cloud Dre's legacy because of the one white rapper he brought forth. Not
at all.
This thing, and honestly, you have to think maybe he created quite a feat because remember, people thought his career was over for the most part.
Oh yeah.
And then he got this white kid who could rap in these weird ways, which was not popular in hip hop. It was he's a battle rapper. Battle rap has never really got. There are very few rappers that are battle rappers and battle rappers that become successful music artists.
I thought he meant that as a compliment that he found that he gave us Eminem. Is that the context he meant? He meant it in a slight.
He said though. He said though, so it sounds like a shot.
Oh no, I don't, man. M can rap. M can rap.
But he also brought us Snoop.
Yeah, he also brought you Snoop, the DOC, who I think is one of the greatest rappers. Like even off of one album, because you look at that potential and what he could have done.
You talking about DOC?
Yeah, the DOC.
Before he got fucked up?
Yeah, before the throat thing happened. I mean, DOC was amazing, and I discovered him kind of later in my life, and I was like, how did I never? It's something, you know how something's been with you the whole time, but you never really put a face to it. Kind of like it's funky enough. It's getting funky. I've heard that my entire life, but I never associated it with DOC. I never even associated it with hip hop.
Really?
It was just a thing. It was like, oh wait, a rapper did that song.
That's crazy.
Like, cause you're a kid, you see like Bring It On and shit like that. You're like, what's that song? And you hear it everywhere. And then when you finally hear the song, you're like, who is this person? And you go look it up, like, yo, this dude is incredible. So yeah, Dre gave you a lot of people, man. Dre gave you Eminem. I guess you can say he gave you 50 by proxy.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so Snoop Dogg.
I mean, you can say a lot of people. I was also thinking about TDE.
TDE. NWA.
And that's a given.
Yeah, that's a given. Yeah.
And also remember, he created hits for multiple people. Yeah. One of my favorite songs by Eve was a Dre production.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I feel like with people like Dre who become legends. Mm-hmm. It gets really difficult when they're still young and they're gone. Does that make sense? So I think that's my nervousness about this. It's like we haven't even had a chance to really live with our legend yet.
Right.
Like we want to hear the stories when he's 80 talking about what was going on back in the day. And I think those are kind of things we look forward to. And then we lose those people and we lose the ability to have those conversations with those legends.
And it seems like it happens to us specifically. Like
exactly.
You still see Clint Eastwood like running around, but you don't get a chance. You're not gonna get a chance to ask Prince, like, yo, why did you do this? Michael Jackson or people like that, even the Marvin Gaye, people who have like this profound impact. And I think even with Dre, the artist, even a person that's significant, even the artist that he didn't work with, he's impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. So we can say all the people he had.
The whole G-Funk shit and all of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He influenced his brother, Warren G. Even though I know they have a beef for a lot of reasons. But But I think, that you can't deny the impact. You can't deny the impact. But I don't want to just stay on that down note. You guys keep me abreast as to what's going on with Dre.
Last I read, this is on TMZ, that he was lucid. He was, he was aware of what was happening. It was just they just couldn't find what was the cause of the aneurysm.
Then that makes me even more nervous. So,
oh man, yeah.
Comforting. Dre's divorce proceedings caused the aneurysm. Having to fork over $2 million a month can cause cancer in your ass. I don't want to say that. I mean, I get the thing about divorce and the thing about a lot of what we get as far as information about divorce. That's just fucking wild. Yeah. I just think the marriage and divorces, celebrity or not, it's hard for me to just have a hardcore one opinion stance because I don't know about marriage. I have no clue.
Yeah, and there's three sides to every story, and you kind of miss the days when you didn't know about people's business. Like you kind of miss the days when like, hey, what's going on?
Oh, we didn't know as much of it so fast.
Yeah, we didn't know much of it so fast. Like you hear about it in a documentary 5-6 years later. And, but now it's like you're understanding and you're making like decisions for them. Like he shouldn't do that. Nah, Dre, what you do? It's like, yo, he has a lawyer. Like, don't worry. Like we're making decisions on other people's behalf and stuff. So
that but that brings us to our main conversation about media and how we receive information, the stories that we're told. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we receive information about things like marriage, and how do we think, and how does that condition how we think about things like marriage? Right. If you look at Twitter, look at the conversation that you see on Twitter about relationships. They sound fucking ridiculous, right? Man, and they sound fanatical. Like most Black people do not have the income to be able to have one person be the only bread owner for a full family.
Yeah, especially. Man, I think a lot of things, and this is kind of like my general belief system as it pertains to us. A lot of times, our thinking has to evolve, and I think sometimes we get stuck in like kind of antiquated thinking. But these aren't even ideas of our own. Like these are like white people telling us what to think. Like, or nah, this is how he should treat you. Like, well, hey, if you guys have a 2-income household and this works for you, why do you want to judge this person, this man or this woman based on a white person's idea of what's successful?
And this is exactly what I'm saying. You have to do what works for you and your family.
Right.
Like you can't like I don't like when people pressure people to get married, for example. Right. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that's really big in the media. It's like, oh, if the man doesn't marry you, or if the couple isn't married, let's start off there. If the couple isn't married, it's because the man doesn't want to marry her, right? That's usually the assumption. It's never, maybe she's not ready. Maybe it's just not good for their circumstance. Maybe they will eventually when they're ready. Because remember when Nip was alive, that was the whole thing with Nipsey and Lauren. It was like, oh, he won't marry her. Why she wants to get married and he won't get married. I'm like, you don't even know what their circumstances are. But we have this idea because we're so influenced by the media, where we want to imitate white relationships and white standards that they can't even live up to in 2020, in 2021. They broke too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I have this conversation with people all the time, and they kind of get offended when I say this. But I feel like at the end of the day, white people know us better than we know ourselves. They know how we're going to react. They know how we're going to do this because we've all been programmed to a degree. It's all social engineering to a degree.
Well, I think that people get upset because of the way it's phrased, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's a very specific type of knowing, not know us.
Oh yeah, not nuance. Yeah, not in like the nuance in a nuance kind of way.
You mean like know our behaviors because a lot of this engineered. That's the
Right.
thing.
Yeah, and they control the narrative. So for the most part, they control what information you receive. And since you've been engineered as a collective, we tend to receive it a certain kind of way. So if I show you that, you know, for like you see movies and stuff like that where like the guy, he might buy his wife a diamond ring and she might buy him a tool set.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, he's giving you a gift and you're putting him to work. So and that's how we like. We don't.
It's funny that you say that because sometimes you hear it also the other way. Like the wife will get the husband something really nice, like some nice shit, and then he'll give her like a dishwasher or a vacuum.
Yeah, like here goes here's a nice apron. I put your name in this apron, and it's like I don't want this. I want her. But I think we just have to, like you said earlier, we have to find what works for us, independent of what the outside world thinks. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I know you're really big on, and I know that's part of the reason why you created 7 days straight entertainment is because you want to be able to control conversations. Like what conversations are we having as Black people? You're like a lot like me. I got into media because of the same thing. I wanted to change the way Black people see themselves using media. Because a lot of how you see yourself is based off of the mirror that you're given, right? And also the education that you receive in those indoctrination stations that we call schools, right? And what they've done is tell you who you are. Remember, we were talking. You and I talked about this before the show. Jackie Robinson's your hero, right? They told you that. They taught you who your hero was. Right. So you have good.
It's like they say, be like Mike, but no one wants to be like. They don't teach you to be like David Stern, who, kind of was in charge, for lack of a better term, of Mike. Like we just learned that, again, it's like we say with the relationships, we're kind of given like, oh, you should be happy with this type of success, like, or you should be happy that you're even on TV. Like, why do you need this? Like, how dare you come to me with these requests? Like, you should be happy with whatever information I'm giving you and the fact that I'm showing you.
As a media person, how do you feel about that conversation around diversity representation in media? Because I know you're in film, and I know this is why I'm asking is because people in film often have a different perspective than people who aren't in film, right? So even if you're on the side of, I don't believe in representation in a certain way, like, oh, fuck the representation shit, to create our own shit. At the same time, people want checks and need to develop skills and need. So that's why I'm interested in your perspective in that as a person who's in film and media.
I think as long as you don't own the industry you're in and you're not responsible, if you're not producing the product and putting your own money behind it, this is a service. Acting or being on screen is a service. It's a service industry. Like you say, people need checks, people need to work, and I think we have to stop confusing. We confuse jobs with representation sometimes. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's a bad habit we have because, like, you'll see, and you wouldn't think we still have these problems, but we still subconsciously, I feel like as a collective have these problems. We're still so happy to see each other on TV to where like we can't even approach it with like critical thought sometimes, to where it's like, well, you don't think this character is a little, agenda heavy? And they're like, who cares? He's Black. Like, he's just a brother trying to make it. And it's like,
that's the other thing I hate that people do. They'll act like by you bringing it up, somehow you're just trying to bring down Black people or bring down a Black guy who's trying to make it, or you're being a crab in a barrel.
Yeah, and that's the issue. It's like, 50 years ago, this wouldn't have been as much of a discussion. It would have been known the kind of character, like you had those characters, but those characters were ostracized. Like there had people who wouldn't even allow like their family, like Amos and Andy, for example. Now these are these are black people working. Like, they need jobs. They're probably supporting their entire family. They probably contributing to the community. They're pioneers. But because there was so much discomfort in our community, anything that was put out there that kind of seemed like a slap in the face, we challenged it. Like, hey, you're not gonna depict me like this. Whereas, like,
that happens now. I mean, I feel like people get called hypersensitive, and they clown you for being woke every time you make a critique.
I think it happens, but I think what you just said, I think the fact that people are being identified as hypersensitive, and they kind of scurry off back into the closet. Like, yeah, this bothers me, but I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to come across as this. I don't want to be confrontational. Whereas I think as an artist, really as a community, but especially as a member of the artist community, whether you like it or not, as a black person, that's your job. Like, we don't have the luxury of just being comfortable, in my opinion. We don't have the luxury of just being comfortable and just saying, oh, come on, man. It's like, no, because if there's no, this might not be the best example, but if there's no Sidney Poitier, then there's no Denzel Washington, then there's no Chadwick Boseman, then there's no this or that. It's not so much what you say yes to, it's what you say no to. Mm-hmm. No, I'm uncomfortable with this. No, I don't like how this is gonna impact, other people coming behind me. When Denzel refused to do a love scene with, I think it was Julia Roberts, mm-hmm. that had a major impact, because think of how that would have impacted black women at that time. Where, like, this man, like, you're already a member of this disenfranchised group. You got mm-hmm. your man that all these sisters love on TV.
Yeah, in fact, you're the reason. The only reason why you're in the movie is because they know black women will watch it and increase the numbers.
Right, and you're going to insult me by, and I don't think nothing happens by accident in Hollywood. I think, people who in control of millions and millions of dollars, they don't do things by accident. I think a lot of times, a lot of times things are done strategically. So you're gonna, like, break all of these sisters' hearts just so you can, like, get paid. Like, when you can easily just say no, and you're the star of the movie, so they'll work around it.
And it was a smart business move on his part, because black women were his bread and butter. And I think he said that because he said very clearly he knows where his bread and butter is at. It's from right. And but even the fact that you can name in order top black male actors shows you how limited actors there are. Like, he really went down the line of the top of the top. Right. And Chadwick Boseman was on his way to becoming that, right? But you went from Sidney Poitier to Denzel and to Chad. Like, the fact that you can go down that line.
Yeah, and even aesthetically, they all tend to have, like, similar aesthetics, clean cut guys. I think Chadwick is the first one who had facial hair. Like, these are it's a certain aesthetic and a certain thing that you see. And again, you point this out, then there's kind of, you're gonna be called hypersensitive, or you're looking too deep into it.
Well, also, I think people confuse us bringing it up and talking about it and critiquing it with critiquing and shitting on the person. Right. Like, I think we're aware the game that we're all trying to play right now, right? Unless they do some real coon shit.
Yeah, unless it's something overt. Then look, this is inexcusable.
So unless they're doing some, like, coon shit, I don't think that's what we're trying to do, is, like, to shit on them, because I understand. But at the same time, I think I made this point, if you guys follow me on Twitter, that's in my pinned tweet, about why we're given the images that we're given, because you were talking about how they look alike. Remember, they're all supposed to be clean cut, great guys, right? Damn near perfect. They have to be damn near perfect. You don't hear a bunch of stories about Denzel Washington being out in these streets.
You don't hear anything.
You hear shit, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying he's not. We don't know what the fuck the man doing, but we know it don't come out.
Yeah, we know we ain't hear about it.
We ain't hear about shit. And so, but there's a reason why you have to have these clean cut stories and these clean cut black men. And by clean cut, I mean by white standards. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Exactly.
What they consider to be clean cut, what they consider
Right.
to be acceptable, the acceptable Negro.
Right.
And I think that is purposeful. Like we're talking about propaganda and the power of media.
Right.
Now you're told this is what a good black man is. They
Right.
don't. They talk nicely to the white man. You
Right.
know what I mean? They talk. They're not aggressive. They're not.
They're stoic. They're like stoic people.
Right.
Like, how do you feel about this? Well, I don't know. I'm not, I'm not aware of all details, da da da. And again, like you said, we all have to wear the mask. There's that old poem, we wear the mask that smiles and lies, it hides our faces and shades our eyes. And this is because we aren't in control. We aren't in control of this industry. This, like the entertainment industry, we may be, the fuel that keeps it going, but we aren't in control of it. In control,
right.
So ultimately, we're at other people's mercy. Like marketing costs a lot of money, and we are most of the time, like when you see a person and you're like, wow, this person's worth like $1 billion, and they still answer to white people, and and you're like, why don't you just do your own thing? It doesn't cost that much to make a movie. Like especially these days with like how advanced technology is going, like you can do a tons of things, and you won't have to answer to anyone. Just like, right. Nah, I'm gonna stay over here where where it's safe. They like me over here.
Right. No, I think the comfort, and don't get me wrong, leaving your comfort is scary. Like what is on the other side? I think it's really easy for us to be judgmental of people from the past, for example. Right? They'll say,
right.
Let's stay on the plantation. Yeah, that's easy for you to judge, but we weren't physically slaves. We don't know what mentally has happened. That type of breakdown. You don't know what the fuck you might have lived your entire life and never left this fucking plantation. What the fuck is outside?
There's people who don't leave the state now. I never left New Orleans. Well, I left New Orleans. I never left Louisiana until Hurricane Katrina. Like, there's people who don't go anywhere now, and like I see these memes and these posts, and they're so fucking offensive. They say shit like, "Well, we're not our ancestors." Like, you don't realize how much ass your ancestors whipped. Like, your ancestors laid it on the line. Like,
I tell people that's them your ancestors. So I got my grandma. My grandma died at 98 about a year ago. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
There are stories of her whipping a white man's ass.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing, and that's because again, what do you see? You see, Martin Luther King, and you don't see the real Martin Luther King. You see the homogenized Martin Luther King,
and you don't see the Martin Luther King who was fed up with white people shit.
Yeah, you don't see that guy. You don't see that dude in 67. You see the Martin Luther King in 64, 63. You don't see the one, the one that's coming for the check. You don't see that guy. And so that shows you like, well, this is how you have to be to get where you want to go. And this is, this is what's acceptable. This is the only way to get what you need. And so I think a lot of people, since that's the narrative that's pushed in the media, a lot of people feel like, oh, that was weak, da da da. But that's easy for you to say because you weren't being chased by dogs and hit with bricks, and like your life's on the line. All of our lives are on the line when we go outside.
Yo, you know what pisses me off? These niggas will let their boss talk shit to them all fucking day.
Right.
You got the nerve to judge some artist or some athlete who didn't turn down a check. I'm like, you don't turn down a check.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying I agree with everybody's decisions, but it doesn't fucking matter if I agree with them or not. The reality is like, I like this idea that we're going to judge Black people.
Right.
For some, like, I always forget this guy's name. I always Google it after I say this and then I forget it again. I apologize. It's this Black professor. He talks about the white supremacy trauma trance. Like we're all under this trance of white supremacy. Some of us get out of it or are getting out of it. And some people are completely oblivious that they're even in a trance.
Right.
Because it's been their entire world. That's how they've always seen the world. That's how they've always thought. And you're taught that this is how the world works. You're taught everything's fair and equal now. Martin Luther King did his job.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln did his job.
Everything's great. For a lot of us, America started in the 60s. Like, because for a lot of us,
I would say the 70s.
Yeah, even the 70s. For a lot of us, it's like, well, shit was bad. It got better. Martin Luther King came, and now we good. And you're like, wait, hold up. Wait. And it's almost like we've been like walking around just like in a sleep state, and not not as a pun for like the being woke, but we literally have no idea what's going on a lot of the time. Like, we just take things as they come. Like, oh, okay, this will happen. It's like, no, don't you see what they're doing right now? This is a problem. Right. And then once these things go on, it becomes, you're like, oh, well, in hindsight, now I know better. Even like with the crime bill. And like, for people to say, well, a lot of black people voted on it. And it was like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, no, don't just accept that answer. Go do the research.
Let me say this about you brought it up, and I have so many strong feelings about the crime bill, especially since I've seen how it affected us specifically here in South Central.
Right.
And it was crazy. There are videos about how fucked up it was here in South Central during that time. The thing that pisses me off about that entire conversation, especially with the part that you brought up about how black people supported it, that first of all, that's not true.
Right.
It's true in the sense that a lot did, but not that it wasn't like there was an insignificant amount that was against it. About 40% of black people were against it, right? And the 50% that were for it, they have been duped. The creator of that crime bill also begged Reagan to ramp up the drug war, which caused a lot of the problems that we were seeing that made communities so desperate. And what they really wanted was funding for their programs. White people said, oh, you're not going to get that unless we can put more police, unless we can incarcerate more people, unless we can create these stupid ass, what do you call those things? Minimum sentence. What do you call minimum
sentence? Minimum sentence requirements.
Yeah, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
Mandatory minimum.
Mandatory minimum. Right.
I'm stuttering, y'all. So you have these things that are in place that are creating the problem that we're seeing, because it drives me nuts that we try to put it on black people, like we had other options, like we didn't know what the fuck to do. Our kids are dying in front of people. Are crack. Yeah, people don't remember crackheads like I remember crackheads. I was here in the 80s. Okay, I was born, by the way, in the 80s. I'm
okay. That's a blessing. That's a blessing.
I was here in the 90s. I watched all that shit happen. I was here when Natasha Harlins happened. I was here when Rodney King happened. Right? I was here. I saw. So they try to tell people, it's like, oh, y'all weren't here. Y'all weren't outside. I was outside. I've seen shit happen in front of my fucking eyes. Don't tell me.
And a lot of people who say that, you were never, like, you weren't leaving the house.
In the community.
Yeah, you didn't even live in the hood. Yeah, you weren't even in the hood.
They were in the suburbs. And I know they were because of the shit that they saying. That's how I know.
You saw what was happening on TV. Like saying shit like, well, people were getting robbed for their Jordans. You know how many people couldn't afford Jordans in the hood? Like, who the fuck who was getting where was all this happening? Like, well, I think,
people got robbed for all kinds of shit.
People got robbed for whatever you had. Like, if you had
your stereo, your fucking chain, your watch, your hat, your jacket.
We used to say in my neighborhood, if you bought like a TV or something, no matter how small it was, burn the box in the yard. Don't put the box out front.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because people are gonna know you buying TVs and shit. Oh, you got money. But it's kind of like I liken the crime bill to smallpox, right? And it's like you come with the blankets and say, hey, we see y'all cold. We got these blankets for you, and they like, but they got got a smallpox on it. But the people like, well, nah, we don't want the blankets because they got smallpox. And other people like, well, can't you see we're freezing? Take the blankets. Right. I mean, it's like you had a better chance of surviving.
But don't you see that you're freezing because they stole all your fucking
Yeah,
things?
yeah. It's like you don't see them, but you don't see that like they're freezing because it was them. They're and ultimately the finger always is ultimately always going to come back to us or our elders because whether we feel like they failed in some instances or not, we all for the most part we're all in survival mode. People are just trying to survive.
Thank you.
Whether they, and it's terrible because I'm a fan. You mentioned Joy the Group earlier. I'm a big fan of Joy the Group and Barbara Sizemore and people like that. And like you listen to like Joy the Group speak on post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we've never been deprogrammed, and we live in a constant state of stress and anxiety. Like where I'm at, it's 10:44 where I'm at. All right, I can't go jog outside. I don't even live in the hood, but I can't go jog outside because I'm not worried about. Like even if I was in the hood, I would only have to worry. I would still be worried about two people. I would worry about my brother, and I would be worried about the police. But out here, even in the suburbs, I still got to worry about the police. So
Exactly.
it's a constant state of anxiety. So
I love that you're saying that, and I want to get back to the survival mode thing because they know I talk about trauma all the fucking time, and I really want to get to that point. To answer your question, truth in words, we don't have a number for you to call into, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a comment, I would love to hear it. Or at least be able to read it. So please put it in the chat. If you have any thoughts, ideas, questions for us, please put it in the chat. We don't have a number for you to call into, at least not yet. We will soon in the future. We're trying to create some more stuff. I have the Patreon at the bottom if you want to help donate so we can be able to do things like that and provide more resources for you guys. Patreon.com/champagne sharks. I had to plug us since you're going to ask that question, but we don't have the ability to call in yet. We're working on that. But to your point, Chedda Chaz, about about survival mode. The thing about trauma is that it pretty much keeps you in survival mode.
Right.
And I talk about the brain a lot. I had a whole, you guys can go back in some of the old episodes. I have a whole slide presentation that I do on trauma and survival mode. And, but in short, your brain literally does not have access to analytical thinking, to long-term planning, to long-term thinking. The ability to impulse control, all that stuff is lost when you are in survival mode. I'm putting my hand because that's how I usually show the brain, right?
Right.
So the brain stem, that's your survival part of your brain, your reptilian brain. And then you have your limbic system, and that's your emotional part of your brain. It's where bonding and connection, empathy is here, right? And then you have your neocortex. The neocortex is the part where I was saying is your, planning and thinking, analytical thinking,
right,
impulse control, all of that. Now, what happens when you become afraid and you end up in survival mode? You go to fight, flight, freeze, and for women, appease. Is our fourth survival response. We go into that mode, right? So something makes us scared. Anger is fear, by the way. So anger, fear, whatever it is, that part of our brain literally goes offline. Then the next part that goes offline, your ability to empathize. That's why if you ever get into an argument and you get real angry,
right,
and you say some fucked up shit, you'll kill
someone. You'll kill someone.
And now all you're relying on is your survival part of your brain. As I tell the kids, like you flipped your lid. Right. So the thing is, if we talk about that collectively as a people, right? If we're operating in survival mode, we're constantly just worried about the next day.
Right.
What's going to happen today or tomorrow. That's it. We're not thinking 10 years from now.
Right.
We're in survival. We're trying to keep it. How do we keep it alive today? And we cannot operate solely in survival mode. It does not work. We're going to have to find ways to heal. We talked about, we haven't been deprogrammed. We haven't had an intervention. We haven't been able, there's so many things that we need to, and I think media is a great tool for this, which is why I love media so much. There's so many things that we need to get us out of this survival mode and realize we have to build as well, right? I'd like to share that because I think that's important. When we talk about the actual way trauma works,
Right.
it's literally played out in our community over and over and over again.
It's extremely critical, and especially how we internalize things is like one thing I loathe seeing this. Like when I see like the Karens or people like that, and they're in the they're in people's faces and they calling them niggas and this like that, niggas and whatever they're calling them, and you got your phone out, and I'm thinking if this was a black person, you would have killed them by now. They would be dead by now because you don't value yourself or you don't value this black person. But this white person, subconsciously, you're saying, because if you say this, people like, I'm not scared of no white person, but no, subconsciously, you're afraid of what's going to happen if you challenge this person.
Right.
And so, but if it's a black person, you're like, oh, you're just like me. You're nothing like me. So,
which is interesting because I feel like I'm the total opposite. I'm way more empathetic with black people.
And that's crazy. And but that's because you have a certain enlightenment. And
and I was just raised a certain way. I was raised in a very militant house, black militant household.
And that's incredible. Like myself, I was fortunate because in New Orleans there's a lot of I guess I would call them like historically black like grammar schools. Like,
oh really?
Yeah, when the first school I ever went to was it was George Washington Elementary, but I was there when they changed it to Dr. Charles Richard Drew Elementary.
Oh.
And from there I went to McDonald 39, and they changed it while I was there to Avery C. Alexander. And I went to Beauregard Middle School.
They was on a roll. They was like
they were just changing everything, and it was so impactful because you got to see like these beautiful black people, like their family would come and they would give like history on like the value of the person, because we never knew like none of the people when we were going to school. We knew who George Washington was, but all the other people we were just like, oh, this is some white guy. But when you see how impactful these black people were, you start to value yourself a bit more. And for the people who didn't have those opportunities, you still it's still there. Like you still see that venomous attitude toward each other, and it
What would you say is the significance of that name change for you guys as students?
I know for me, I think it sparked my quest for like understanding and just kind of just it let me know, because racism is like it's like air. Right? It's always there. It's always there. It's always around. But you don't really, as a kid, especially growing up in like the 90s and the 2000s, I didn't really get to see it until those changes happened. Because it was like, well, who was Charles Richard Drew? And it's like, oh, he was a doctor, black man. And they break it down. So you're like, okay, cool. Then who is Avery Alexander? Then he was a black man who did this, and now it kind of spoke like, okay, all these are black people. Who was Thurgood Marshall? And it kind of it just sparks your quest for knowledge, and now you want to know more, and you stumble across a bunch of other people, like the people that some of the most significant people you don't even know their names, like the people who played the background, the people who died. Like a lot of people don't even know who Medgar Evers is.
Right, they're very true.
And that's crazy.
Movie called the Medgar Evers Story. I'm pretty sure there's a movie.
I think I did see that. I think I saw that. But if you didn't see
TV movie or something,
yeah, it was like a TV. It might have came on like ABC Family or Lifetime. It's like one of those movies. Like if you didn't see what's the movie with Whoopi Goldberg and James Wood? Oh God, it's not Mississippi Burning. It's Not a Time to Kill. That's sad though. There's so many movies about like black trauma that you gotta like go through. But I don't really know. Yeah, it's so many. I saw somebody post a meme earlier. It was like streaming services be like Black History Month or like Black Voices, and they'll have like all these trauma filled movies and shit. Like, yo, our existence is a lot more than that. But to that point, it's like me even knowing that these people existed sent me on a different avenue, I believe.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer that those things are really important, because if they weren't
Yeah.
important, white people wouldn't be so adamant about it. Make sure they have
Right.
statues and names of streets are named after certain people, and
Right.
all that stuff is significant because you're saying who we as a culture, as a society, honor, what kind
Right.
of values we honor, right? Kind of so that's what you're saying when you have these schools named after people. One of
Right.
my things when someone asks me what would be one of the first things I would do, as far as if I could change black schools and black communities or black schools or whatever, talking about grade school, and I said I would change the names. First thing I would do.
Yeah.
We don't even think about the fact that you have these black kids going to a school named after somebody whose entire career and life was dedicated to keeping them and their people enslaved.
Right.
Right? I think George Washington would be rolling in his grave if he knew you Negroes was walking around free.
Right.
Right. So, but
Right.
yet you go to school. I went to my first high school was called George Washington High School. It's in a black community. My school was put down at the time was like I want to say 70 to 80% black. The other part is Latino. It's LA. You're gonna have Latinos, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then another school is Thomas Jefferson, and another one in a black community, right?
Wow. Right.
John Locke and Watts, right?
Right.
Something John Jordan, whatever Jordan Star, I can't remember the guy's name, some other guy,
Right.
right? So all these white people, you have these David Jordan, I think was the guy's name. I don't even know who he is. We know he's white.
Right.
But we have our kids going to these schools named after people who wanted them oppressed, who wanted them enslaved, and then
Right.
we're simply talking about go Washington, go Jefferson. We go to you don't think about how that fucks up,
Yeah.
right? And then you're told
Absolutely.
these are your forefathers. They ain't your forefathers. They're
Right.
not. But you're taught this. In fact, in fact that we even use that language in school, right? Forefathers, and you hear it over and over and over again, and we don't realize the impact those things have. I would never send my kid to a school named after some white man or white woman,
Right.
especially not one who wanted them enslaved. That doesn't.
Right.
But we send our kids right over there.
Yeah. And it's like we can say that. I mean, for some people who are in like survival mode, you may not have an ensemble of options. Like you may have to compromise and do that. But I think at one time, especially in like maybe your generation or my generation, there was a lot more hands-on like indoctrination of your own children. Like like I remember my grandmother. Like when I say it in the short film, that was a real story. I remember my grandmother taking me to see the movie Panther at the movie theater, and just seeing and I was too young to even understand what was really happening, but just how the effect that had on me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe in like energy transfer and how like I know Joy DeGruy spoke on that, how like genetically like down the line trauma can be passed through DNA.
Epigenetics. It's called,
Yeah.
So basically, your DNA is altered with trauma. So
Right.
it literally because remember your body is constantly adapting. So
Right.
preparing the next generation for the type of environment it's about to be born into.
Right. So imagine you're going into George Washington High School. Imagine the like subconsciously what's igniting, walking in there, seeing this statue of George Washington, opening these books, like history books, where they're like, yeah, yada yada yada, Christmas addict, yada yada yada, Malcolm X was bad, Martin Luther King was good, yada yada yada. But George Washington was the man. He's get your George Washington T-shirts. We have the George Washington pep rally. Like it's all these things that in like.
In fact, our mascot was the Generals.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Okay.
I'm serious.
Okay. Like, and some shit is just so brazen, and that I heard Dave Chappelle say this before. He was like, "You ever see something so racist you don't even get offended?" You was like, "That's really racist."
Oh yeah.
Like that's how some of the shit is. It's so brazen. Like you don't have any sympathy. Like you're just gonna go ahead and just do this, right? Like okay.
Cool. I think we get but also I think we're used to it. I mean, think about it. Your first school is probably named after some white guy, right? Then you go to the next school and named after a white guy. Like it's not something you even think about. Not something you even consider, right? Your brain just is adapted to it, and that's part of why I think. I call it the re-education of the Negro. Like, I believe we need to re-educate ourselves. I think we need to remember that education played a role, and it will actually plays the same role in any country in the world, right? Public education is for the progression and the advancement of that nation. There's a reason why they your curriculum, right? There's a reason why you're required by law to be there, right? Remember, your schools ain't the same as they schools. Your schools, they schools teach them how to be executives. I'm not even joking, right? Our kids how to be their labor. That's why they talk to those kids. They teach them how to negotiate. They teach them how to, get everyone's needs met at the table. Our kids learn, get in line, be quiet. What are you doing? Keep going, take it away. Stop fighting. I don't know because I worked in schools for years, for like 15 years.
You learn how to be cattle. You learn how to be cattle. I know
and to follow orders. That's all you know how to do.
In Louisiana, like they don't even teach trades in any schools. Like,
think about that. That's for a reason. That's for a reason.
And that's like one of the primary, like you can leave high school and instantly become an entrepreneur with a trade, like instantly. But especially in certain communities, you don't need to teach trades necessarily because you're teaching them free enterprise. You're teaching them how to be science. You're teaching them how to debate. You're training them, breeding them to be politicians and to be the rulers of, the country. Whereas in our community, like, you need to learn to have a skill, because if all I'm teaching you is athletics and you don't grow up to be that tall, what you gonna do when you get out of here?
Right. Or all I teach you is a bunch of bullshit you don't need, and I halfway to you can barely read the shit. And you talk about you want to go to college, but you got a 3.5 GPA in classes that don't transfer to college.
Right. Exactly.
So, so it's not like it's not an accident, right? Like, think about like the trades, even public education and stuff. Let's talk about trades in school. There's a reason why trades were taken away from you as an individual. Remember, people, you learned a trade, it was usually your family trade.
Right.
If your daddy was a blacksmith, you was going to know how to be a blacksmith, or a blacksmith's wife if it didn't work, right? So that's just, whatever you're a carpenter, your family's carpenter. That's what we do. That's who you learn from, unless you get an apprenticeship somewhere else. Maybe your family didn't do. Maybe your family was farmers and you wanted to be a carpenter and you did that. So it was. So, and I'm talking about generally in America. I'm not talking about specifically Black people. And remember, slaves, once they were free, all slaves also had skills.
They were the most skilled people in America.
The guy who brought macaroni and cheese to us was Thomas Jefferson's slave, Sally Hemings' brother, James Hemings.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That's why we fuck with macaroni and cheese.
Right. It's spiritual with us.
Right.
we get it. Right.
Right. So the Black people had these trades and skills that they were passing down to their children as well. Right. Now, as we create public education where you're required to go, where everybody's learning the same thing, and you started breaking them up into grades. Remember, schools weren't always broken up by age and grade. They used to be small schoolhouse style. So everyone in the whole town went to the same school.
Same education, right?
It was about maybe 30 of y'all, unless it was a small town. If it was a bigger town, you might have a bigger school. But for the most part, there was no first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. That wasn't a thing, right? All those things are set up for a reason, because they're trying to churn out a certain level of labor. We're going to a service-based economy. We need more service labor. They don't want you learning no trades. Never mind the fact we're going to have to keep building shit. That ain't going to stop. Because they don't teach you that anymore. And you make money doing that shit, by the way.
And that's the issue.
You bring it into the Black community. You know what I mean?
Like, and this is a strange comparison, but that's kind of like, I know in California State, they've taken like weights out of prisons, in certain prisons, because the inmates were getting too big and the guards couldn't handle these people anymore. And they're not worried about white people. Like they're worried about like the BGF getting too big. So and the same thing with schools. It's like they're not, again, it's how we judge success. You're taught that being a mechanic is not a glorious job to have, but you're a business owner. You can provide generational wealth. You could be your own boss. You don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to compromise. This is something you can bring your family in. It's all types of things you can do with a trade, but we don't do that the same way. We're like, oh nah, if you get a trade, you must be a dummy, or you must, you can't cut it and
Well, I think it's also, remember when Black people were doing trades at a certain point, in like the 60s and 70s, they were low wage. They weren't paying Black plumbers like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't the case. So I think that's also part of it, is we weren't making the money. And even now, out here, we have like all these Black unions and Black organizations have to make sure that construction sites hire Black people. And guess what? I drive by construction sites every day.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
I drive by construction sites almost every day. They gentrify like a motherfucker out here. So they're always building some shit.
Yeah.
I see maybe one Black person.
He might be Dominican.
We don't got Dominicans in LA.
Y'all got no Dominicans in LA? Oh yeah, cause y'all know.
We in LA. We got Latinos, but the only Afro Latinos we got are like Hondurans, and they pretty much say they're Black. So
okay, right.
But yeah, some Central Americans. We got Belizean and Honduras.
Okay.
We don't got no Dominicans. But again, Belizean and Honduras mostly call themselves Black. Especially because there's a lot of Garifunas there. So that's probably why.
Okay.
But yeah, so they say that they're supposed to be hiring, but they're still not hiring us. Or if they hire us, we don't get because I think there's like tiers and levels to how you get paid.
Right.
And if you have like a certain certification, I don't know all the details of it. I know that there's tiers to how you get paid. If they do hire Black people, most of them are getting the lower tier. Right. So, so I think there's also that stigma about it, because it's like, well, does it really make money? Now it does, definitely.
Yeah.
But can you get hired on a construction site as opposed to being able to? Because they're not gonna. It's really difficult to get contracts in big cities because all the companies got them.
Right.
So if you had your own carpentry company, who's going to hire you?
Yeah, who's going to hire you?
Right.
Right. You have your own HVAC company. Who's going to hire you? But I think it's still, and ultimately, like what we said before, like as far as surviving, people still need to eat every day. They still have to get paid. So you have to compromise and, work under someone else's rule in a lot of instances. But I think ultimately that's one of our paths to, I don't want to say salvation, but one of our paths to some more advancement is entrepreneurship in any regard. Like, I don't care what you do, as long as something positive. I don't care what you do.
The tough thing about entrepreneurship is competition.
Yeah.
Especially, because the reality is that you can't rely on just a Black consumer. That's not realistic. Ain't no other company relying on one demographic. I promise you that.
Right.
So you'd have to be able to have a product or service that's universal enough to bring in an income for you.
Right.
And the difficult part of becoming doing that is you have to have certain resources. Like Black people and Black communities will put up with some shit from your Black business if they fuck with your product or your food or whatever it is, right? You could even talk crazy to me sometimes. I know you got an attitude, whatever. Keep my food.
Right. Her ass in here today. Just go ahead and get it.
Sometimes that shit pisses me off. Don't get me wrong. I find another Black business to go to, but everybody's not me. They're gonna be like, fuck it. In fact, was it New Year's? Almost every Black business I wanted to support to get something to eat was closed. I had to give my money to the Latinos. They were.
But it's what you had to do.
But also, I understand maybe it wasn't affordable for them to stay open.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I can't be mad at that. So it's a challenge still, even with Black entrepreneurship. We're not getting the business loans.
Right.
We don't have collateral or credit.
And our number one issue is like access. Well, one of our main issues rather is access to capital. And again, it's like, what do you do ultimately? You're in between a rock and a hard place, and you hear a narrative like, well, just do this, or won't you just do that? And it's with no nuance. There's no nuance whatsoever. It's like, well, I can't do that because this, and this, or ultimately.
But then we say that they're making excuses and we judge. That's usually what comes right after that. Is judgment.
Yeah, for like, but it's hard for a person. It's hard for a person who's kind of who may have risen through the same circumstances to not judge, I think, to not have that a certain level of bitterness, and I think you see that, and that's kind of what
that's engineered too. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's engineered too, and that's the point I was ultimately trying to make with the character, that you can start off with great intentions. You can start off with great intentions. You want to help people. You want to do this, but when you feel like it's not being received, or you feel like you got a problem for every solution, then your intentions start to shift, and you start to feel a little bitter. Maybe what they say about you is right. Oh man,
resentful. Yeah,
you become resentful, and now it's like, okay, I'm the you're not worth my time. Like, I tried to take you on, as an apprenticeship, but you don't want to learn. Go figure it out yourself.
Sometimes people don't realize that they can be abusive in the way that they're trying to help people.
Yeah. Yo, it's funny, and I make a joke about that sometimes, like if I'm like directing or something like that, and I can get a little hot sometimes, because everyone, we don't live in each other's heads, so we're not necessarily seeing we can't see each other's vision all the time. So I want something done a certain way, and I might have to express it harshly the second or third or fourth time, and I'll be like, oh, you gotta shake it off. It's negative elevation. It's negative elevation. You gotta shake it off. So we all respond differently to different things. Like, but it's very easy to get to that point though, especially with Black people, because I think a lot of times we don't have time to soothe one another. You know what I'm saying? We don't have time.
We don't even soothe ourselves. We don't give ourselves empathy. We don't give ourselves compassion. We judge ourselves when we judge everybody else.
Right. And so it's crazy when you look at it that way, because you're like, man, how come you just don't get it? How come you, like the sister Barbara Sizemore, you watch her lecture, and she was an older woman when she did these lectures, and the lectures are literally titled "Black People Just Don't Get It," and you can just hear
what?
Black people just don't get it. Like these are the lectures, right? And she was like this, like super great, like educator and stuff, and you can just hear like the pain and the passion of a person who's been trying to like help people for like all these years.
Yeah.
Like, you look at John Henry Clark. John Henry Clark went blind, and he was still doing lectures. Like, come on, y'all, we gotta start making toilet paper. We gotta start making safety pins. Come on, y'all.
But so this is the thing, and I 100% agree with you, because I worked in social services for years, and nonprofit work, right? And I would work with people who would get that frustration, right? Like they get, first of all, anybody who works in social services, I promise you, when they started, they got into it for the right reasons.
Oh yeah.
Because one, you don't get no money in social services, so it's certainly not because you're getting a check, because the check is very minimal, right?
This is like a calling. That's like a calling.
Right? And it's a very stressful job, right? So people who get into it, they're usually into it because they really sincerely wanted to help. Right. The problem is, a lot of times we're not trained to understand how to work with people and how to connect with people. Remember, like I said a second ago, we don't even give ourselves compassion and empathy. We don't really know how to give it to others. So we think, oh, I'm giving you all the steps you need to take to get your kids back. Here are the steps you need to be taking to get back in school, or get out, or be able to get off probation, or whatever that I would try to teach them how to do. Or and then it's easy to get frustrated when they're not doing what you feel that they need to be doing, right? Mm-hmm. And so you would have these people who would work in those fields for 20, 30 years, and by the end, they don't give a fuck about nobody. They think all you niggas is lazy. Y'all don't know what you're supposed to do. And I get that frustration, but that's because, again, they weren't properly trained to understand and connect with people. I didn't have that problem. I worked in social services for like 15 years. I didn't have that problem. Why? Because I didn't have this thing in my head where compliance and results was my key thing. My key thing was connecting.
Right.
And when you learn how to connect with your people, and you can only do that if you love your people. I had to learn how to love my clients. Most of my clients were kids.
Wow. Right.
So, and love my families, because they were from my community. That was easy for me to love them. They're from my community, because I always worked in my community, pretty much almost all my jobs outside of nanny, right? But it was always definitely like, I love the kid in front of me. That changed your whole attitude and changed your whole ability. It's not about them making a quote unquote mistake. They're trying to do the best they can, do with the trauma they've been dealing with. Right. And when I started doing that, I changed. Until we can give empathy to other Black people, until we can be compassionate to other Black people, we're going to keep having that resentment and that anger. You're absolutely right. People get frustrated with people who aren't quote unquote rising up or coming out of the circumstance because they feel like they did that.
Right.
And that's what's funny is people don't often talk about their own privileges and opportunities they had that got them there.
Exactly.
You didn't
That
get
as well.
it.
Right. That as well. It's. I was watching Hoarders the other night. Right? I don't know if you watch Hoarders, but I'm like a Hoarders fanatic. I love like binge watching Hoarders. And there's a black therapist on there, right? And out of I watch this show all the time. And so there was like this black couple on there. This was one particular time, and she was talking to them, and she was just being really disparaging. And I was like, I've never seen her handle a white person like that. I've never seen it. And my mind was blown. And I was like, am I really watching this? She was like, no, no, no. What are we gonna do? Like and she's a therapist. She's not even like the cleanup specialist. Like,
so you know what? You see that a lot with teachers. So I worked in schools. So one of the programs I ran was in Watts, and it was the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, after school program. And my program was specifically for kids who had parents who were incarcerated, or a sibling who was incarcerated, and kids who were in kinship care or foster care, right? And kinship care is when a relative takes taking care of the kids, like a grandparent. My school was literally across the street from Jordan Downs housing projects. So all my kids came from the projects, right? Which is a trauma all its own, especially in a place like Watts.
Right.
And I would, get these kids in my program, and I sit in the meetings with the IEP meetings and all that shit, right? And giving, updates on what's happening. And I would hear the teacher constantly talk so badly about a student, right? And you're thinking, this kid must be, fucking up like really bad.
Right.
But they're not. What happens is the teachers are harder on the kid that they think is smarter. And so the same thing happens with black. If you have a black teacher and you're the only black kid in a white school, almost all the time you have black students who say the black teacher was the hardest on me.
Yeah.
Same thing in college. I heard people say that the black professor was the hardest on me because I was one of the few black people on the campus. And the thing is, we're harder on for some reason, we think that helps us. I think they think they're helping by doing that.
Yeah. I think and that goes to how I said, like, some people receive like motivation differently. Some people, they might, when you're dishing it out, you might view it as negative elevation. That was my experience in literature class in high school. My teacher name was Miss Johnson. Oh, I hated Miss Johnson. Miss Johnson I was the only, after Katrina, I moved to Pasadena, Texas. And
in California? Oh, no.
No. And look, that's actually when they said, yo, we're going to Pasadena. I was like, oh, we're going to California. You're like, no, nothing like that. Nothing like that, brother. But I was like one of 6 black kids in the school. Mm-hmm. So, Miss Johnson used to be on my ass. Chaz, did you say something? Oh, I thought you said something. Like this harassing me. And I never got, and I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. I was like, well, maybe, she's trying to push me because I'm black and she's black. But she also had a white husband. So I was like, I don't know.
That puts a whole nother.
Yeah, that also put a whole. Yeah. Yeah, for me it does. Because I'm like, I don't know. Do you just not like me because I'm black? Because I don't like, you afraid that they're going to think me and you get along or something? Or look at them over there conspiring. Like, is that what you think? Because, from the moment I got there to the moment I left the school, it was tyranny. It was tyranny with Miss Johnson.
See, I thankfully, I didn't really have that issue. Mm-hmm. I pretty much always went to black schools, and most of my teachers were probably black or Latino, a few white ones. But I had other issues. I hated school. I was actually I was a student activist in high school, a pretty big one.
Oh, no. That's dope, though.
I went to a really fucked up school. I went to a couple of fucked up schools. So, but that wasn't necessarily my experience. But I have heard that before, where they're like, wait a minute, is this black teacher on me because they want to do better, or they believe in me, or they just hate me and resent me? And I'll tell you, it could be one or both.
Yeah. Because
emotions can be really complicated, right? So especially if you're a teacher, because I'm sure as a teacher or an instructor of some sort, you're in it because you really do want to help people and educate. So that's in conflict with this resentment you might have towards Black men, right?
And that's another thing. So, like, and there's a movie with Octavia Spencer. It's not a super well known movie, but did you see Godfather of Harlem?
Parts. I didn't finish it.
The guy and the character who was like the singer on there with the guitar, it was him and Octavia Spencer, and he played like this like all-star student and like football player, track member, and the Octavia Spencer would terrorize this guy. And like that was the whole movie. Like the movie was about she was targeting. He was like a child soldier from Rwanda who was adopted by like this white family, and it was like this real like real white savior story. But she would but it was really cool and nuanced though, because she would terrorize him, and they had like conflict because when they finally like confronted each other, she was like, "You're supposed to be special. I treat you this way because you have to succeed. You have to do this. You have to do that." It's like, wow, you putting all this pressure on me. I just want to be a regular person. But she was like, "You don't get it. You can't be regular. You don't have the option." And it was such a crazy dynamic. It was such a crazy dynamic.
You know what's interesting? I feel like I've seen that dynamic multiple times in shows and movies, and it bothers me a lot because I think people buy into that belief, especially towards Black people. Black people buy into it like heavy. This idea that we need to be treated harsher in order to be better, to succeed. That's why we have this very strict, harsh crime and punishment mentality. It's really just white supremacist bullshit that we've inherited, right?
Right.
But we really believe that it's the harshness, but people don't realize that's actually the opposite. You make it difficult. In fact, a lot of times students will give you more problems, right? For example, students will give you more issues if you're aggressive towards them.
Right.
And then what happens with most teachers, they'll go, "Oh, see, this is the problem. You're the problem." Now realize that they've been provoking the student for months, right? Because we have this mentality around, because I put like this, that's how we've always been treated. So we think that's what it's supposed to be, like it's normalized for us.
Right.
So we parent that way, right? So I really hate that whole. And I'm glad you brought up a TV show, because that really goes again back to kind of like what our key conversation is, our key point in this conversation, which is that media is very powerful, right?
Extremely.
So the fact that we have a lot of these movies and TV shows that give you that perspective that the harshness is what these kids need. We need tough love. I saw a tweet the other day about the movie Lean on Me. I hate that fucking movie. I hated it when I saw it. That's the Morgan Freeman movie.
He just died actually. Joe Clark just passed.
Yeah, I think that's why somebody was tweeting it. And he was getting a lot of praise for turning the school around. Well, I never liked that movie because I thought he was an asshole in the whole movie. Funny enough, the school I told you about, Washington, there's a movie about the principal that turned that school around.
Is that Denzel Washington? Is that the one with Denzel?
Yeah, that's the Hard Lessons, but with Denzel Washington. That was with George McKenna. So he was the principal before I got there. And that school literally turned into a highly police school. My first day of high school, the police came in searching people's stuff. My first day of high school. It felt like I was in fucking prison. It was awful, right? We have this, it's like this media push that this is what Black children need. They just need more strict.
Need more discipline.
They need more discipline. And, they need tough love. And this is what love is supposed to look like.
Right.
I'm tough on you because I love you, because I care. I hit you because I love you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not realizing that that's actually causing the behaviors that they're trying to change.
Right.
Now you have more kids, because people get mad at kids today for whatever reason. These kids don't talk to adults crazy. They sure do, and some of them should. I'm gonna be honest with you. I worked with kids for so long that they always respected me, so I never had that problem. They wasn't cussing. Right. At first they might try to cuss me out, but once they got to know me, it was a different story. But those kids are standing up for themselves because we're constantly bullying them, thinking that we're teaching them. And then we believe that, and we're taught that, it was passed down to us, right? Think about like the slave master telling the mom to beat their child.
Right.
in front of them because they did something, broke something, they ran, whatever it was kids do. And if you didn't beat your child, massa or the mistress, meaning the wife, might beat them and kill them.
Man, I
Right?
can think of so many examples of that just on film. To what, like, even I've seen that in Black Lightning, a show that's supposed to be like it.
Never seen it.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. But like even I can remember growing up, like in my later teens until like maybe like I'm 28 now, so in my later teens up to maybe 25, and my mentality was, yo, I don't want no man telling me nothing. I don't want no man trying to instruct me or trying to be my fault. I don't want none of that. I don't want no man. I'm not accepting that. I don't want nobody trying to talk to me or discipline me. Like I'm not going for it because I'm going to view it as disrespect, and that's because my experience with how people would communicate with me, like just throughout life. So
I know how Black boys are treated, Black children, but Black boys in particular.
But again, luckily, I was lucky enough to, with the schools I went to, there was a lot of, I did get to see like the other side of it. There was some empathy, there was some love and compassion.
And that's what got you to where you are now. That's what I mean when I say we don't think about the interventions that we actually had. Right? The reason why I don't hate Black men now, despite all the trauma I've been through at the hands of Black men, because there were so many other Black men growing up that protected me.
Right.
And so I don't have that same bitterness and hurt towards an entire group of Black men or to all Black men, because I've had the intervention. You had schools and other people who treated you differently.
Right. And it was crazy and I be having to remember this sometimes, like, yo, the internet will have you thinking that the majority of the world feels this way. When it could be it could be a very vocal minority. And a lot of times it is. But the fact, when you see the retweets, when you see the likes, when you see that, it's reinforcing something in your mind where you're just like, yo, people are really crazy. And that's actually how I found your show. And, because I was like, I gotta find somebody who thinks like me. I can't be the only one who feels like this is happening. Like, you look for we have some confirmation bias, and you look for like reinforcement of your ideas sometimes. Like, am I tripping? Do other people think like this, or maybe is it just me? Maybe am I an outcast? Then you look, you say, oh, other people feel this way. It's not just me. Well, I guess it's just us. And then you feel somebody, you find other people, but like, you got the gender wars. You got like the light dark wars. We always at war. we always at war.
And no, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of it's fueled, especially with online media that we're seeing. Social media being another, just the biggest place for propaganda right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're thinking a lot of these videos are real and they're staged.
Right.
I can usually tell that when they're staged, but sometimes they're created to demonize Black people or make Black people look a certain way.
Right.
And then you see people sharing and liking and having these fucked up discussions about us. Like, again, not realistic conversations in the first place. Like how we should be dating. How are you going to hold yourself to a white standard that they can't even live up to? Right? Man. Like they created the standard and they can't even. But what you sit up here on Twitter talking about $200 dates. Right. Black people don't have enough money to go on $200 dates.
And I think with people, again, we just totally miss it. It's like, that's why it's called escapism. It's a movie. It's a TV show. Right. This is not real. Like this is an illusion. And we totally miss it. Like, man, I was on Clubhouse for like a week and I couldn't do it. I was like, this is
an iPhone, so I can't even be on it yet.
Oh, it is. Don't do it.
Some people think I do great on there because I'm a talker, and then
I think you would do excellent. I just feel like the rooms are extremely toxic places, and I don't even like using that word, but like, because I think toxic is overused. But like, you'll go into a room and the room will be titled like, this is real like bear trap ass title. And like, how we can all come together. You click on it. Oh, is Queen, calm down. Queen is misogynoir, nigga. Like, oh, it's just going off. It's ridiculous. And I just leave them alone. I'm like, all right, never mind. I'm thinking
Twitter, but audio.
That's all it is. It's all it is. And then it's like how it's set up. It's like how you're the host of this show. It's like, you know, you have hosts in Clubhouse, so they kind of dictate who gets to speak and who it's so fucking ridiculous. It's cartoonish. I get like you would have to experience it for me like to really get it.
Yeah,
like, it's so cartoonish.
Well, I believe it. I mean, it sounds like Twitter, but audio. Somebody says Clubhouse is basically audio shade room.
Oh yeah.
By the way, real quick, let me get some shout outs. Go supporter shout out. You've been participating in the chat in the convo. Chris Gilchrist, Jessica J. I always gotta shout out my ladies. Bongani, he said salutations and salutations right back. Who else says something in here? I think that's Lamine. I know I always fuck up your name. Hope it's Lemon. Saneh. Shout out to you. Thank you for participating. And Sean Breezy, shout out to you. Corn Pops as well. Let's see. I think Harlow already said that's it. Outlaw. Yeah, I got you guys. So just wanted to say shout out to you guys. Thank you for participating both on Twitch and YouTube in the chat. And please make sure that you support. Go ahead and help us get some more subscribers on Twitch if you're on Twitch. And please feel free to donate here and get a sticker or something, give them a super chat right here on YouTube. And that helps us be able to get more resources to bring to you guys. And we have some things we really want to do. So please donate. Sorry, I had to do that.
Oh, no.
But I really feel like sometimes even the media and the movies and the TV shows that we watch are getting content from social media, right? Yeah. Like if you watch shows like Insecure, which by the way, I'm not an Insecure hater like all my other people are. No, my champagne shark.
I've just never seen it.
It's got some problems. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely got some class problems, and some other relationship shit. A lot of fuck shit. I think I'm just biased because I'm from LA, and it's based in Issa's life is essentially mine, scarily like mine. But shows like that. Someone said Lovecraft Country. I haven't watched that, but people T from here, our show said the same thing, that they get a lot of conversations from Twitter, and you can tell. And it's sort of scary because now it's on a bigger platform and it's being reinforced. Like it's bad enough it was on these blogs, right?
Right.
It's bad enough we have Madame Noir and Poor Harriet and all these other. What's the other one? Not Griot. What's The Root? That's what I'm thinking of. The Root. Yeah. Maybe Griot. I don't really be on them like that, but you have these blogs and shit like that that were supposedly intellectual but pushing a lot of bullshit, and now we have TV shows and movies repeating the bullshit from Twitter and making them stories in their TV shows. Like, that scares me a little bit.
I think like we get into it's like intellectual masturbation. It's like, well, I'm just gonna, and they know like we don't necessarily on Twitter. It's only so much you can vet. You know what I mean?
True.
And it gets to the point where you say, well, like if I call you out on something, you're gonna say, well, I don't have enough characters. That's why you didn't get what I was saying. Or go look it up. I'm not your Google. Google it.
Which is the stupidest response. Because I can tell someone didn't research shit when they say that. Because anybody that researches knows Google doesn't give everybody the same results, nor does it necessarily direct them to your source that gave you this argument. But,
And how do I know your source hasn't been discredited already? So I'm going to do all this research to come back to a tweet you probably deleted. So just to like defeat a person I don't know. So it's it's crazy. But I've seen that myself. I did watch Lovecraft Country, and I was very disappointed. I was very disappointed in it. But I wasn't surprised. I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised. because I see this everywhere in media now. It's fucked up because as a filmmaker, it's like a curse because it's hard for me to watch things objectively sometimes because I'm always watching it from a filmmaker's perspective. Like, what message are you trying to convey with this? And there was this movie. This movie pissed me off so bad, and I know this had to come from Twitter. This movie called His House on Netflix. It's called His House, and the movie was so like heavy-handed, like with the agenda. It was like a Nigerian movie. It was like a Nollywood movie, but it was
I hate heavy. Even if it's stuff even if it's a perspective that I hold, I just really hate heavy-handed.
Yeah, it was just too heavy-handed. It was to the point where I was like, yo. And I'm talking about in the first like 20 minutes, I was like, I can't watch it. It's hard for me to finish. I finished it though. I had to finish it because I didn't want to say, I didn't, do my due diligence. But it moved me to the point where I was like, yo, should I do a review about this? Like this is how much it has bothered me. It was like it was like this total like gender wars. Gender wars.
And it was clearly meant, and I think it was it Ghost? Yeah, Ghost said, I think all of these social media wars going on within our community are being funded. I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's so obvious at this point. Nefarious happenings are going on and people are falling for it and being radicalized. Well, I agree 100%. Because a lot of this shit, they're coming from accounts that don't have faces.
Right.
I honestly, I don't trust accounts. The reason why, like people like, oh, I want my private stuff on there. Then honestly, don't be on social media. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Or just don't say fucked up shit. If you scared, it's clearly shit you wouldn't say in person, right? So don't say you're that scared. But you're not a real person to me until I see who you are. Like I want to see big pictures, videos, so just to show that you're an actual person. But some of the people are not, or they're paid actors. I will say if they do have an account, I'm like, this person has like 12,000. 20,000 followers for doing what? They don't even have anything on their fucking bio. Like, I don't know what are they doing to get 20,000 followers?
Right. And someone like yourself and like Ghost of Porter, see, you guys see it because this isn't new. Like this has been happening since forever. Like with the Us movement and the Black Panthers, with like just several instances where you see people who are like sock puppets. They're sock puppets for an agenda, even if it's by proxy, even if it's like, well, we don't necessarily fund this person to do this, but we know who this person is. We've vetted this person. So we've got a pretty good idea of how they're going to move if we give them the limelight. Yeah. And, it's not really a theory because you've seen it done so many times throughout history.
100%. Well, I think we underestimate how much is contrived and constructed for us. Yeah. How much is engineered specifically for us. There's a reason why the celebrities you see are prominent, Black or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean, again, I'm demonizing them. Some of them I would, but not all of them. But there's a reason why certain celebrities are prominent. There's a reason why you're going to see interviews about certain topics over and over and over again. There's a reason why your news outlets, regardless of which one you're watching, all talk about the same topic.
Right.
They might have their own spin on it, but they pretty much all cover the same news. I promise you, there's so much news out there, it could totally not even overlap, and it'll be easy as fuck, right?
Right.
And I don't mean like stories you should know, like local shit. I mean like stories that they spend in-depth amounts of time on, like Black men voted for Trump at 20%. The second largest group to have not voted for Trump, right?
Right.
But there's all these articles from all these publications. I remember when years ago, there's these articles all the time about why aren't Black women married? Remember all those articles?
Yeah, vaguely,
Black women try something new. It was even a movie at the time.
Like the divesting thing.
Yeah, but they didn't even call it divesting. It was a divesting term at the time. It was called trying something new.
Yeah, or like with Sanaa Lathan. Yeah.
Yes, Sanaa Lathan, that movie, Something New. Also, there were these specials with ABC and Steve Harvey was on his fucking book, Think Like a Man. Yeah. And they had these panel discussions with Hill Harper and Sherry Shepherd. I remember all that shit. they're representing Black relations, them arguing, having these gender war conversations. I don't think any of that shit was an accident. I think, and what's interesting, I felt like you started to see that rise when you start to see more of Obama and Michelle. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because seeing a Black family all the time, regardless of if we fuck with them or not, seeing a Black family all the time has an effect on you.
Right.
Thank you, Lamine, for the donation. Appreciate it. He's in our super chat. Shout out to Vita, Cheddar, and Champagne Sharks liking the continuous live streams helps me through the day at work. Thank you, Lamine. Thank you for the donation.
Thank you, Lamine.
I'm glad you liked the conversation. I'm glad it's helping you get through work. But yeah, sorry, I must mention. But yeah, I saw that rise with Obama and Michelle. You see this Black couple all the fucking time,
right?
And they're not fighting. You never see them have a fight or an argument. There's no drama coming out. So Obama's sleeping. Even JFK couldn't escape that shit,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
and I always look at us like, I think because Black people are viewed as such consumers, and that being a consumer doesn't just mean spending money. Like, your time is your currency. Mm-hmm. So we spend a lot of time consuming information from people who have don't have our best interests at heart all the time. And we go out and we live the information we got. Like, we go out and we put this into the world. So like the idea of like a power couple, that was never an idea before like maybe the last 20 years. No one ever really thought about that because there
was a power couple because that's not the image that they were promoting at the time. Remember that these things are engineered.
Right.
Before, the image you're promoting was woman at home, man in the workplace. Right.
And now, you see both groups. Like you said, it's hard to make it on a one income household. It's nearly impossible.
That's what capitalism does. They want everybody to work. That's just a reality.
Right. And right now I'm in Maryland and it's expensive as hell out here. So I can only imagine California. So and as you see that and you see our sisters going up, you see brothers kind of maybe staying stationary or going down, and you saying, hey, you need to, why don't you get with a powerful man? Why are you with him? Why are you with this bum? Or man, look how she's making you feel. Don't you feel inferior? You like your woman makes more money than you. These are all seeds that are being planted to create division, and it works.
And the fact that they are creating opportunities that include Black women, which, by the way, all that's a facade. That's a whole. We'll get into that later. Mm-hmm. I call it the pseudo helping or pseudo love for Black women. They don't.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. I get so mad about it. Like, these politicians will parade you up there on their stage, and then guess what? Your Black ass is still dying in their fucking hospitals, right?
Right.
You can't even give birth. You don't even think about. I get so mad about that shit. But at any rate, it's like the fact that if you have one group doing better than another, and they're the same, like you have Black women doing better than Black men, that in itself is a problem. That is engineered. That is not an accident, right? There's no reason why in this day and age that we should not, at the very least, be about equal. As far as education, income, getting jobs. They're not hiring Black men. I think they're pushing Black men out of schools. I say fuck the schools. Don't get me wrong, but there's a reason why they miseducate you or they push you out. So either they push you towards getting more of their indoctrination, or they push you to prison. That's usually that's what schools do, right?
And it's to the point where it's like the more, I guess, quote unquote, masculine you are, the less chance you have to succeed in society. Because no one wants, just from a business standpoint, no one wants confrontation as a business owner. Mm-hmm. But you especially don't want to deal with someone you may not already like for some reason. Mm-hmm. Because they're Black, you don't like them. Then it's a man. You may have an inferiority complex about dealing with this person. So what's going to happen the day you come to him and challenge him? It's like society doesn't have a role for Black men. Right. Like, it's like there's no real, even with the labor force, it's like, well, we're not really, picking cotton anymore, so we don't really need you to do that.
And to be 100% real, like, and I think about this a lot with the increase of, certain populations, they're not going to need our labor anymore. And they're
Yeah,
letting it be known. You know
yeah,
what I mean? They're creating an underclass in the Black community because we're starting like, yo, you got to pay me the right wage.
right,
They're trying to pay nobody the right wage. They're
right.
trying to, get over.
Man.
They will get the most vulnerable population that they can. So, with Black men in particular, a lot of the jobs that Black men were getting, they're no longer getting.
Right. And
They're,
I look at like in when I would watch documentaries about like gang culture in California, and I would see how like some of the factories were closed, or when I moved out here and I went to work in the factory industry, you like, yo, there's a lot of like Pacific Islanders in the factory industry, and you like,
wow.
where did you even come from? And it's crazy because like pre Katrina, I've always there's a lot of white people in New Orleans, but I've lived and went to school around majority Black people.
Mm-hmm.
There was probably like 5 or 6 others at the time when I was in middle school.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were like in like a special class, and it was just like it was a thing. They didn't want them. They were like in protective custody. They didn't like want them around us. And then after school, then after Katrina, like years later when I moved back, you see the like almost an entire like demographic shift, and you're like, how the fuck did this happen? And you're like, well, where are all the Black people that used to do these things? And it's like, well, no, we got somebody else to do it. I'm talking about from McDonald's to
same thing.
all types of private industry, and you're like, wait. Well, and the excuse they use is it's a double-edged sword. They'll say, well, sometimes Black people might feel like they're too good for those jobs, whereas other people they're. And I heard Lupe say something like that one time, and it offended me. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt because maybe I didn't get the context in which he said it.
He be saying goofy shit though. I fuck with Lupe, but sometimes he say goofy shit.
He said something along the lines of, his other groups might say, Hispanic Latinos might say "si senor," whereas Black people might say "we need more," right? So that was the line, and I was like, maybe I gotta.
Low key, that's offensive to both Blacks and Latinos.
Right, that is very.
Think about that.
Yeah. So you said one group is too integers, and the other group is they just take anything they can get. That's what you're saying.
One group is yes massa.
Yeah.
And the other group is begging massa.
Right.
that's how it sounds. Like that sounds extremely offensive. There's no way on every side that is fucking offensive.
So I was like, what the fuck? Maybe I was like, I had to mishear. I was like, I had to mishear this. So
what the fuck do you mean? Like Black people need more? First of all, yes, we do.
Yeah.
We're owed more. I think that's what he should have said.
And that's the thing that kind of gets me. It's like Black people. I've even heard Black people say this. When we feel like we should be treated better, or when we feel like we should be compensated, it's viewed as begging or asking someone for something. And it's like, no, this is a debt. Like this is what's owed to me. Like I need this money to survive. Like I need this money to live. I need this money so I don't have to ask you for shit. Pay your debt.
Right.
And I think like the issue with, when you see the demographics start to shift is that, a rising boat doesn't lift all tides if a rising tide doesn't lift all boats if we still at the bottom. So other groups kind of act as buffer classes and like, honorary whites as it pertains to keeping us out the equation. Well, like if Tyrone goes to Mr. Jackson or whoever is like, hey, Mr. Jackson, I need a raise. So I could, you've been underpaying me for years now. I need a raise. He's not going to negotiate with Tyrone. That's not how business works, first of all. And secondly, Tyrone, I can just get someone else to do this for cheaper than what I'm paying you now. So you don't have any leverage in this situation.
You don't have as many options as I do.
Exactly.
That's really what it is.
Yeah. So, and we don't have a lot of skill sets like we once had before, like we spoke about earlier. So it's kind of like It's kind of like being married to someone who they've been. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to think, well, even if not having the skill sets, but even if we don't have certain skill sets, we have so many other things that we do, build, and create. The problem is we
Right.
don't know how to make money from it.
Right. We don't know how to capitalize on it.
Makes money off of the shit that we create.
Right.
We create music. Music is one of the biggest things in the fucking world. We have the biggest artists in the fucking world.
Right.
And yet most black music artists are not getting that money, and it's not going to black labels and going to black communities and going.
Exactly.
And on top of that, it's only certain ones that they're even allowing to make money off of it, right?
Right. And even when you look at like athletes and entertainers, when you see how much money, like you see how much money Steph Curry makes, right? Like Steph Curry making like $200-300 million this year before taxes, right? The fact that information is public is an issue. Because now, if anytime Steph Curry complains, you say, what is he complaining about? This nigga makes $300 million. But that's not even a fraction of what the owner of the team makes. And the owner of the team doesn't do anything. So
and you have to consider what it took for him to get there. You know, how hard did he have to work since childhood? And people think, well, his dad wasn't in the NBA, so therefore he had it easier. He probably had it harder.
Yeah, probably had it even harder.
Expectations, you know?
Yeah, because what if I don't make it? Or what if I get here? Like, you have to work extremely hard. And I think that's the crazy thing about us that a lot of people don't get. Is like, you have to work extremely hard as a black person to be a failure. You have to work extremely hard just to say, well, I tried to do this and it didn't work out. Like, you had to get to that point. That's a battle.
Right.
To even 100%. Get to that point.
Oh, and I mean, there's so much, and I think you're raising a good point, especially around, you know, making it so black people aren't supposed to complain or say anything. Like that's a common phrase. You guys should be grateful. You're free now. You can, you know, Martin Luther King got the civil rights. Like you Negroes should be happy because you're lazy. You don't want to pull yourself up out the bootstrap, and you know, and these are real beliefs that people have.
I wasn't there, bro. I wasn't there. It's just I wasn't there doing like nigga, I wasn't there neither. So.
Right, but at the end of the day, we're both impacted by it.
Yeah, and then you're benefited, and I'm still being harmed by this.
Right, exactly, exactly. So you can't take like these quote unquote successes, which by the way, we have to even question how successful they were and in what areas they were successful. Because things like the civil rights movement might have been successful in some things and completely destroyed other things, right?
Yeah.
But we talked about Jackie Robinson. I think that was before the show.
Yeah. I crippled the Negro Leagues.
So I use Jackie Robinson for pretty much almost all my examples around this because this is one of the most clear-cut examples you can have around integration and how white people benefited from it, knowing they were going to benefit from it. Let me take it back. Remember we talked about survival mode?
Yeah.
So I look at the Negro League and I look at the MLB in that sort of way, right? Negro League's just starting, you know what I mean? As far as they're newer than MLB. You have less resources than MLB. Everything's segregated, so they have to utilize black spaces. And hopefully every town had some. You know what I mean? There's a lot that goes into building up a league, right? MLB was founded by blue bloods. They're not in survival mode. They're trying to figure out the day to day. They're trying to figure out how they're going to get somebody to buy a team. You know, that's not hard for them. That's not a thing for them. They're thinking 100 years ahead.
Right. If this thing doesn't make money next year, who cares? It's a process.
Exactly. And remember, we talked about this. All the best players were in the Negro League. So guess what? We got to go poach that Negro League because everybody goes in games. They're starting to grow. So we have to stop that shit.
Right.
So let's go ahead. Let's say that they're breaking a color barrier, and now we getting that money.
And that's all part of the media.
You can count on your hands the number of African American players that are in MLB.
Right. Well, I can't even feel up my hand because the last person I knew is Judge. Is he black? I don't even know what he is. It's mostly Afro Latinos. If you see somebody black out there, right?
You know what I mean? It's just not a lot of African Americans. And we broke the color barrier. We don't have a league now. We ain't got no league. There's no more black hotels benefiting from that league, and black restaurants benefiting from the league, and black makers benefiting. You know what I mean? All that's just gone.
Right.
But MLB, they weren't in survival mode. They could plan. Right. They could think long term.
Right. It's like with even with, like I spoke about integration before the show, it's like all the industries that we had started to establish ourselves in, we gave up ownership for jobs just because the idea of proximity to whiteness versus our being comfortable. It's hard to be comfortable in the slums, but at least you don't have to worry about, being oppressed racially, at least not overtly, amongst that community. But you're gonna say we're uncomfortable here because we got to live around all these black people, because you view proximity to whiteness as success. Like no matter, even if you live, they call you nigga every day, now you went from being a boss to having a boss. You went from employing people to being an employee. Now you're more uncomfortable than ever. But as long as you can be up on the white people, you're happy. And that's what integration to a larger degree did to us. And
the White House was colder. We thought and to be fair, we were conditioned to see whiteness as superior and conditioned to see white things as better. We were conditioned that because it was that's what you saw. That's what it felt like to you.
Right. You even see it now to a very large degree. Like you see some things. Yeah, and I think even now, like I said this to you before, like offline, I was just saying how I think now media is more dangerous than ever before, and it's more venomous toward black people than ever before, because I think we're at a point now to where it might not seem like it. This is my theory. I feel like we are a lot more comfortable than ever before. Like we deal with oppression. We're like, oh, this oppression I can deal with. You know what I'm saying? This oppression I can deal with. And I think also the way the media shows black people killed every day. I think that George Floyd video, I don't view it as, oh, we have to show this because we have to show what was happening, what black people go through. I viewed it as we need to show how you get these niggas in line. Like that's how I viewed it, because we saw it the first 30 times. We don't need to see it again.
And usually I don't watch it, and I accidentally watched the George Floyd one, and I was at work. I was crying. I was like, I'm a human, so I'm not a fucking sociopath. I don't feel like I need to watch that shit and laugh. When I was looking at the white people shit I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's just so heinous. Like, and having to look at that. And I like what you just said a minute ago, that we should be seeing, we should be watching videos of how we get these motherfuckers in line.
Exactly.
Not them oppressing us and enslaving us and Jim Crowing us and choking us with their foot and knees and shit.
And I just looked at the narrative and everything from there leading up to the election, and how it was. I mean, at this point, it's like everything's commercialized. Even oppression is commercialized, right? Especially our oppression. Mm-hmm. So you just look at the narrative, like, oh, he was calling for his mother, and this is the things they were saying. And if you listen to depending on how you interpret things, you can see how a black kid might see this, or a black person might see this the same way a kid or a smaller person might see on a plantation. Look what they did to they took the biggest black guy. He was like 6'7". Look how they reduced this huge black man to a groveling victim. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And by an ordinary white guy did this, and his partners, of course. But these are just ordinary white people, and it's like, yo, we can get to you anytime we want to. I don't care who you think you are. This is what we're gonna do. Right. Now, and I looked at that, and I just saw how the narrative was going, and I had at that point, I wasn't. I was kind of. I film ideas, but the narratives were totally different. Like it was just something kind of run of the mill.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, and I saw the reaction to it, and I saw like the dynamic, because at that point it was every other day it was something happening, and it's. I think a part of media manipulation is like, yo, we're not gonna hide this from you. But we're gonna show you what we want to show you. Like we're not gonna hide it from you though.
And
Like
contextualize it the way we want to
yeah, and
contextualize.
we're gonna contextualize it the way we want to contextualize it. And if you do something crazy, if you do what you should do, we're gonna say you overreacted. Like we're gonna say, you overreacted.
It was a that's gaslighting, right? Where they put you in a
gaslighting,
and they make you think you're crazy for how you reacted.
Right. It's like the definition of gaslighting, and that happens with us time and time again. And sometimes you can see some people try really hard not to take the bait. Like when you watch like some of the interviews and stuff, like when I watched what happened with Nate Parker when he came out with Birth of a Nation, and how like that whole thing was totally sabotaged. And I actually spoke to him when I finished this film because I was nervous about putting it out, honestly, because I said to myself, no one's really gonna get it, and it's gonna rub too many people the wrong way. I just felt like it would have rubbed too many people the wrong way.
Honestly, and we'll watch it in a second because I want them to kind of get not the whole thing because it's 10 minutes, but we'll probably watch a couple of minutes in the beginning. The thing is, I don't think it would rub people the wrong way if they listened to what you actually were saying, because it didn't sound like you were demonizing things. You were like saying we got to change how we've been doing things. Does that make sense? And that's kind of that's the impression I got from it. I mean, don't get me wrong, you went hard on some shit. Right. It was funny to me because I think people are surprised because I actually agree with a lot of what you said, even about the Boule and Black Greek organizations and whatnot. Right. And I'm actually in one, funny enough, but in California it's different. It's not like the South. Like nobody.
My brother, he's actually in like the Boule.
One Boule, but not in that. But again, here it's so different. It's not even like California's so different because we don't have HBCUs here, so it's not like a thing.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
There's no HBCUs in California. No,
I didn't know that. Wow.
No,
that's crazy.
We only have PWIs. So
I never knew that.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So here, I didn't even like the things that people talk about the groups and orgs. I didn't know when I joined because it was so different here. It's like nobody, literally, unless you're in an org, nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. Even if you're nobody talks about it. It's just you might see somebody with a license plate and you're like, oh, you put up your hand signal. That's pretty much it. But I didn't know until recently what they've been like, what these orgs have been doing now. But it's interesting because one of my frustrations have been you have this group of Black people who all have this education, they all have this they're connected, and what are we doing with it?
Right.
That was my problem. The sorority that I'm in was actually literally created by educators. It's not like AKA or Delta, or the Delta is nothing like that. It's in the 5-9, but it's founded differently. We were founded by educators, and the point was to take you have the opportunity to go to this HBCU to Howard, and now take that back to your community. That was pretty much the entire reason why our sorority was created. I don't necessarily feel like I see that in the Divine Nine as a group, and you guys are all here. And that shows that's why people started critiquing a lot of things. I was like, okay, I totally get it. Because it's a lot of what you guys are saying is true. It's problematic because you're not doing shit. You're dancing. And then you're mad when somebody wears your letter. Who gives a fuck?
And I went to TSU for a little while. I went to Texas Southern University. And I'm in Maryland. I live right on the outskirts of DC. And then I know there's like at least 2 HBCUs. There's Howard and there's Morgan State. And you would never guess that a university as prestigious as Howard is in DC with the condition DC's in. You would never guess. You would never think that. You'd be like, oh wow, this is like Mississippi. Like you would think that it's like that with towards the condition of black people. And it's kind of like, it's under the guise of like a lot of cute words, like, oh, this is Chocolate City. And it's like, yo, this is a Baltimore and DC. These are crime-ridden places. Like, you know what I mean? So when you look at it, and like that's why I also called it like Pierre Hart, the talented 10 million, because and I wanted to play on Du Bois's perspective as far as like how the talented 10, and I think because what I was gonna call it, the original name for this was White Man's Nigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that would have went over well. I don't think I would have attracted the demographic that I was looking for.
And it's heavy-handed.
Yeah, and it's
earlier, and it's nothing about them to go, oh shit, let me go check that out. It's almost like, oh, I bet this is some more bullshit.
I bet this is like some hooked up shit. Like it would have been rapidly dismissed.
No, we don't call it hotep. We call it Fotep.
Votep. Yeah, some Votep.
Fotep. FAU.
Okay, I never heard that one. Okay.
I made it up. The
Fotep.
FAUXTEP. I don't want to put them on the hotels. Them Foteps. Make them right.
So like when you look at it, it's like you have an elite, let's say an elite class of black people, right? Let's say the Divine Nine considered in society as or they think of themselves for the most part as the elite black people, right? And being from New Orleans, you see that as well, because you probably can't say I'm a really light-skinned guy, right? So you can't really. Well, I'm looking at myself and I look like I got a little tan, but
you don't even have that little brown that I'm seeing. That little bit.
I'm
white.
Yeah, I'm a real light guy. So when I was growing up, it was cool to be Creole. It wasn't cool to be black.
Louisiana.
Yeah, it was cool to be Creole, and the Creole society in Louisiana, that they're thought of as the elite black people.
Are you Creole? Because you light skin like them.
No, I'm just black. I'm just black. I'm just black. So
what's your last name? Devo?
No, my last name is Duncan.
You got your French name. Don't be trying to find.
But no, that's the crazy thing though. When I was growing up, that was the cool thing to do. I didn't get that off for me until I was in high school. I didn't know that I was like perpetrating down in high school, because it's not cool to be black, right? It's cool to be black, but it's cooler to be other when you're growing up, especially when you're growing up in Louisiana. So like out here, I guess you would say, well, I'm saying out here, but in Louisiana, like the members of the Divine Nine, those are all the mayors. Yeah, those are all the the governors for the most part. Those are not the governors, but those are the mayors. Those are the community leaders for the most part. And in New Orleans is another crime-ridden just city. Like it's a rough city. So I wanted to really look at it and say, these people aren't the talented 10. Like Du Bois, maybe in his time, maybe in the context he meant it, like because he had, we didn't live in his time, so maybe things were different, right? But these, I'm sure these aren't if he could see the results of his hypothesis, I think he would come around to Frederick Douglass's way of thinking a little bit. They would meet in the middle somewhere, because
you mean Booker?
I'm sorry, Booker T. Washington.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of say, you know what? You guys have pretty much been in control of the black community for this. And now this is the character. This is not necessarily my belief system. But, you guys have pretty much been in control of the community for a long time. So let's just say a person went into it feeling like you. And they kind of saw it for what it was. And they wanted to go in a different direction. And that's kind of what the character is. The character, he reaches a point of resentment.
So just to set it up, what's your character exactly? It looks like Thomas Sankara, but
nah, my character is General Bakari Hannibal. He's he was a guy who was I don't want to say too much because I'm working on turning it into a feature film. But he was a guy who was he was a pick me, right? He started off as a pick me, but he had good intentions though initially. Mm-hmm. And the more indoctrinated he became, the more he was, he couldn't see things for what they were initially. And the more indoctrinated he became, the more resentful he became of everyone. So he said, look, the only way I'm going to fix this is if I get rid of a lot of these people. And like, yeah, because it would have been too difficult to deprogram everyone. It just wouldn't have worked. And his
plan is like, everybody ain't going to, you need to get some rid of
yeah. His plan is like, look, we all ain't meant to make it. It's like are you familiar with Watchmen?
Yeah, I watched the whole series.
Okay, and in the movie, which is like the movie. All right, so you remember the smartest man in the world?
Yes.
It's kind of like that. Like, in order for me to save everybody else, these people have to go. Right. So it was that was the thought process going into writing it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and this is a short film. It's called Pure Heart: The Talented 10 Million. It's a short film written and starring Chedda Chaz. What is art house exactly? I saw art house written on here.
Art house is it's basically like something like a high quality film that's not necessarily made for like mainstream consumption. Mm-hmm. Because I just don't see this going over well in the mainstream. Or something just tells me that. Something tells me that.
Yeah, definitely not gonna go over too well. I'm gonna go ahead and play it up like first few minutes of it.
Okay.
Start that. Let me know if you got. Oh, you know what? I forget. I'm still getting used to this whole StreamYard thing, so give me one sec. Okay. I'm still learning how to utilize this damn thing. They gonna be like, yo, Vita, you should know by now. I should, but I don't. All right, here we go. Let me know if you guys can hear it okay.
When I was a kid, my grandparents took me to see this flick called Panther at the movie theater. I'm not sure if you ever seen it, but it was about the Black Panther Party and how they put it all together in Oakland back in the day. I mean, these bad motherfuckers walking around with berets and black leather jackets, carrying shotguns and mini 14s. Whew. Shit was so righteous, man. I knew right there at 5 years old what I was going to be when I grew up. A revolutionary. Shit, even at 5 years old, black man can't leave his destiny up to chance. You got to decide what side of the fence you're going to be on. Either you're going to go along to get along, or you're going to say, fuck that. I'm making the rules now. I'm sure by now you're probably thinking this is just another madman manifesto. I mean, 30 million people? Shit. Still not as many that died in the Middle Passage, though. Let the record reflect. But I guess it's bad all the same, depending on who's looking. Of course, you respect the white man, brown man, yellow man, any other kind of man to fuck over the black man. But when it's a brother, can't nobody hurt you like family. And I suppose you gotta sweep in front of your own front door before anyone else's. So I just figured I'd help you understand me a little better. My name is General Bakari Hannibal, founder of the People's Politics Party, engineer of the most successful coup de grace this country has ever seen, executioner of 30 million black men, women, and children. I'm sure I got your attention now. You see, I was picked from a litter of niggas. It's another political science major walking past the silly so-called Greek niggas every day, singing, dancing, stomping, as if it makes a goddamn difference that they know Zeus himself personally. I walk past them every day into that classroom where I told myself I was going to learn how to defeat the white man. Got pretty good at pretending it was working too. Every book I read uncovering more secrets than the last. Woodson, Francis Cress Welsing, Anthony Browder. I told myself that if I could just absorb this knowledge, I could be a warrior for the cause, and maybe I could run for mayor, or governor, and I could help my people from the inside. My professor, Mr. Thomas, used to tell me, "You need to sit at the table, son. That's the only way things ever get done in this country." And I believed Mr. Thomas at that time. Believed in him like I believed in Malcolm or Huey or any of those brothers. I believed that my people needed a politician who spoke unapologetically to them and for them. A warrior to rage against the system.
All right, I thought that was pretty dope. Yeah, I thought that was pretty dope. I thought it was really interesting. Well, that actually the part where we just ended was actually one of my favorite parts, especially the part about your black professor, and because I think a lot of us relate to that. At least those of us who have, definitely come out of that perspective and kind of have more what people consider to be a radical perspective.
Right.
These are people that you respect, so it's not like you think they cooning or nothing.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I don't think this is. I think we should take a different route.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not, and I think the thing that people might find harsh would be just what the general comes up with.
Yeah, solutions. Right.
but the actual perspective, I don't think that is harsh at all. Like I thought like everything lined up to how you got to where you are in that perspective. In that particular moment in that in your story of the professor being somebody you respect and him telling you like, okay, this is the way you're supposed to do it. And you're like, well, I thought that, and then I realized that don't work. That ain't how we do it. Right. How did you create, how did you come up with that particular idea? Was that a true story from you and you put it into the movie, or is it an idea you just had?
It's more of an idea I had. Like you said, a lot of times our professors or people older than us are our mentors. And they can steer you in either direction. And I feel like I was fortunate enough to go to a lot of like black schools, influential black schools in my community. And have a lot of like strong male leadership, like, and they would like introduce me to like certain like movies and stuff. Like my elementary school teacher taught us about Muhammad Ali and things like things like that. So with this character, and it's funny with Mr. Thomas, I call him Mr. Thomas because ultimately he started off like me. He started off like an impressionable guy, like, Bakari. And he had to come to a point in my second interaction with him in the film. He came to a point where he was just like, dude, I know how you feel. I know what you want to do, but it's not going to work. You can't do nothing with him. And that's when I kind of lost respect for that character, well, for my professor, because I see although he said, which he had his reasons for saying it, and it had some truth to it from his perspective, I can see that he'd given up.
Okay.
And the general wasn't gonna, Bakari wasn't gonna give up.
Mm-hmm.
So when he say like, you know, in the latter part, like even if we do live another 400 years, nothing's going to change for us. You know, he'd accept. He's seen so many eras of like, you know, black people trying to get ahead, different leadership, and saw that nothing had changed. That he just accepted, like, you know what, I'm just going to bow out gracefully.
And low key, I think a lot of people could relate to that. I mean, especially if you get older. I don't know how old you are. How old are you? If you don't mind sharing.
I'm 28.
Oh yeah, you're not even 30 yet. Like, it's interesting because I think that perspective is super relatable for a lot of people as they get older, especially if you've been doing a lot of the revolutionary work at a really young age. Like I know a lot of activists, you know what I mean? But I grew up with community activists here in LA.
Right.
Now they're in politics, right? Or now they're in corporate work. They just abandoned it altogether, right? Because it's so stressful and you feel like you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I kind of get, and it gets to the point where it's like, wait, I'm just going to choose a safer option because this is just,
Right.
like, this is just getting out of, like, this is just too much, you know? So I actually definitely get that perspective. And at the same time, it's, the interesting part being the professor had one perspective and went one way, and then you have that perspective and went the other way.
Mm-hmm.
That dynamic is really interesting too.
I think with this character, why I would say I think I was expressing my own frustration in a way as well, because not even I know I was, because when I was seeing everything that was going on with the dancing at the protest, and it's so much rinse repeat, right? It's so much rinse repeat, and it's embarrassing, but it's also infuriating because, like, I don't have a background of activism, right? But I was extremely frustrated myself, and it's like, can't you see the script? Like, you know, can't you see what's happening here? Can't you, like, don't you get it? Right. And I wanted to like say something, but I was like, I can't write a song about this because you wouldn't get it. Like, it would be, it wouldn't stick. It wouldn't stick, you know. And I think truthfully, I wanted to kind of offend people with this because I think we're in a state of, like I mentioned before, a state of comfort, right? And whether we realize it or not, we know what to do. Like, we know we're gonna follow a certain set of rules. Like, we're gonna get mad, we're gonna protest, and then we're gonna go home. And then we're gonna act like none of this ever happened. Then they're gonna do it again. We're gonna get mad, we're gonna protest, we're gonna go home. And then they're gonna trick us like they always do. They're gonna trick us into voting. They're gonna trick us into doing this. They're gonna trick us into doing that. And as angry as we are, we're not gonna follow through with any real actionable items. Right? We're not gonna follow through with any actionable items.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think with me, I had reached such a point of frustration, especially after the election, when I saw all the celebrating and stuff. I was like, you know what? I have to say something. I have to do something. It was on like my spirit. So I was like, you know, what if there was a person who they felt like you couldn't be reasoned with? Like, they felt like, you know, oh man, it's just going in one end out the other. So I'm just going to try to salvage the people who are salvageable, right? Because I can't imagine Farrakhan doing this for 60 years and just not ever feeling that way. Like, man, I'm just not. It's just not, it's not clicking. I can't imagine as many people as he saved, or as many people as Harriet Tubman might have saved. I just think about all the millions of people who were just like, nah, I'm scared, or nah, I'm comfortable. I don't even know what's out there. What if nothing's out there? What if you're wrong? Right. So, and I wanted to challenge that. I wanted to say, well, what if this person just assumed that you were never going to change, and he didn't give you an option? So he's gonna salvage the people who want to change. Right. So where would that leave you? And I heard this saying, it kind of just stuck with me. I heard this saying, you know, you have to come outside, right? Now you either gonna come outside with your boots on, or you're gonna get dragged out. But you're coming outside.
Mm.
Yeah. So this character, like, you know what? You think you're gonna be safe in the house? You think you're gonna just avoid conflict with white people? You're gonna sing and dance your way through this, and hopefully they'll be nice to you one day. Well, that's not an option with me. So I'm gonna just remove you from the equation. And these 10 million people I have, these are all warriors. These are people who want to affect change. And I think this talented tent has a chance at winning. And I'm going to make sure that we win. So that's like the general's perspective.
Let me ask you this. Your perspective. Do you take on more that perspective of everybody ain't gonna make it? Or do you feel like there has to be a way to get more people saved or involved in the revolution? Where do you lean on that?
I think history kind of dictates my perspective as far as like you see so many black men and women like destroyed by other black people whenever they try to advance. Like whenever they try to do what's best for the collective, it's never a white man who kills us. Like it's never
no, it's the black person that they've employed.
Right. And it's all, but yeah, and it's like, wow, how could you and that stalls our reaction because and that it thwarts our reaction because I can assign a black face to your demise.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I'm not giving up. I saw the comment. It's the character. It's the character.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. The character, he didn't give up. He didn't give up. He just put forth an action wide. But my perspective is, I don't think all of us are gonna make it. But I don't. I think that's because, truthfully, it works for so many of us. The system is working for so many of us, or at least the ones of us who steer the conversation. Like you're not gonna get Steve Harvey to tell you that, yeah, yo, you right. I'm gonna quit my job, but Colin, you're not gonna get a successful person, especially in this era. In the '60s, maybe you had the Harry Belafontes and City Boy there. You had people like that who were kind of like, all right, I'm gonna put it on the line. I believe in what you're doing to a degree, and I'm gonna be at least I'm willing to be at least mildly uncomfortable to see that we all grow as a collective. But you don't have that at all. Like, no, you don't see any celebrity or anybody of substance for the most part who not substance, but any like person of mainstream importance for the most part who says anything that isn't parroting like a liberal's perspective.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I wanted to say to that point about comfort in particular. I was just thinking about how like this lack of understanding of the Black economic condition, because we have cars and iPhones. Some of us have housing and apartments, maybe a nice flat screen TV, right?
Right.
But we don't realize, one, a lot of those things are putting us in debt.
Right.
That's
right.
one. And making it so we're consistently owing these white folks.
Exactly.
What we do, our house, our car, our credit card, our education, everything's our business, everything is through a fucking loan, right? And you're constantly owing, but yet we're looking at it like, oh, you got a college degree, now you can get a job.
Yeah, I'm catching up.
Yeah. Right. Black people are doing better now because there's more Black people being educated. But we got more Black people in debt. We got more Black people who, you got this education, but you can't get a job. Or the job you get is the same type of job you would have had 20 years ago without the degree. Right. So, but I think that because we're comfortable with certain things, like I have a computer, I'm on the internet, I'm on Twitter, I have a job, a full-time job, I have a television, all these things.
I can eat whenever I want to eat.
Right. And then you hear the stories about your grandparents and what they went through. You're not going through that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think like, well, my perspective with like the table, right? For example, and how it lends to that, like, and being comfortable. We can say, you know what, it's not that bad. We just need to sit at the table, and that's what'll get us to where we need to be. But you can have a seat at the table, but the menu is the menu. Like the menu is the menu. You're not meant to survive this. You're not meant to win. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You are a burden, right?
At this point, especially.
Yeah, at this point, especially, they're like, yo, we really have no use for you. As soon as we teach, if J Lo can sing a little bit better, we, we wouldn't need Beyonce. Like, you know, it's like, and that's the narrative. And like, again, like after Katrina, when I went to Pasadena, Texas, it wasn't like, it's a historically racist town. It's like Klan town, right?
Okay.
It's like Klan country. And
as a Californian, I think everywhere in Texas racist. But go ahead.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everything's Klan town to me.
Yeah. So when I went there, it was around the time, I think it was around like the time of like DACA, like around when Obama, he was running for president.
Mm-hmm.
He was running for president, and they had like the school, well, in the state, they had like this like massive like school walkout because of like immigration reform.
Oh,
if you would have heard the shit they was saying about Obama, and I'm like 14 years old, so I'm like, well, I thought we all got along. I thought we had a common, you know, camaraderie, and that's when I realized that, like, no one likes us. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah, no one likes us. So we do a lot of like bending and twisting because we don't want to offend, and we don't, you know, we try to appease everyone. But ultimately, we have to. I don't like saying come together, but we have to like deal with our own internal issues, right?
I got you.
Yeah, like we have to deal with our own internal issues before we start worrying about fighting for this community and that community. Like, yo, we can use your help here. Like, we can use your help, you know, rebuilding this or doing that.
And that's one of my issues I have with people who have certain resources and platforms, especially like academics who get on, like, I've been thinking, like, why the fuck are you on MSNBC and writing all these articles for these white publications when your people need this information?
Right.
You're trying to convince white people that this story is important, and that's not, to me, why are you wasting your time when your people don't even know this story? Like, you have all these resources, you have all this information, and you want to waste your time writing articles in these white magazines and publications. You hope, and then you pray for these things to happen so you can get a check.
Right.
Meanwhile, if the content that you're pushing is really what you believe, you'd be pushing that towards your own people. How do we educate? That's why I say the re-education. How do we educate our own? How do we get to the space where we process information, we control the information, and we control how we're then processing it, right? Remember, that's also how we process information is also engineered. School teaches you how to think, how to question or not to question, right? So you've been even conditioned on how to read information or take information. How do we change all of that? I know that's something that's a big question, and I know that's something that you're working on. And we're going to wrap up in a second because it's already been 2.5 hours, and I don't want to take everybody's time. I know you have shit to do as well, but I definitely want to, kind of maybe you kind of touch on that a little bit about your perspective and how we could do that, or the ways in which you feel that you can participate in making that happen.
I think first, it's like with any chronic issue or like addiction, like you have to admit that you have a problem. Like, we have to admit that, like, yo, these people there's no vested interest in Black salvation. There's no financial benefit to it. There's no like societal benefit to it aside from our own with Black salvation, like in Black people getting it together. Because one would think that, that would help, lessen crime, that would help do this, that would help do that. And it's like, no, people don't dislike you because they think you're dumb. They don't dislike you because they think you're lazy and shiftless. They don't dislike you because of that. As long as you're black, you're going to have these problems in every community.
And it ain't no shucking and jiving that's gonna change that perspective.
No shucking and jiving. Like you can be the good nigga as long as you want to be. As soon as you get out of line, they're gonna yank your chain, and it's over. Like it's over from that. So exactly. I think first we have to acknowledge that there is a problem, and one with and because we all don't. We think the things the media actually does show us, like with the Mike Browns and the George Floyds and Sandra Bland's, we still think those are isolated incidents. Subconsciously, we still think that. We still think that, oh man, that's crazy.
Like, we don't know the underreporting that is.
This happens every single day, several times a day. And if you're not a person who like thirsts for information or like, this is something you like to do, you're passionate about, you're never going to know this. And a lot of times people are going to step away from it because, again, like I said before, I think I said this offline, once you know the truth, you have to do something about it. Now you're responsible, because what you gonna do? You can't stay inside, you gotta come outside. So what are you gonna do? So I think for myself, as a filmmaker and as an artist, I think one thing I can do is kind of tell counter narratives, right? Where like a lot of times you see movies that they're disguised as black movies, but they're really like white movies in blackface.
Yes.
and
yes.
And they still push those same agendas, those same dangerous agendas, but now they're even more dangerous because you feel some familiarity because the person is black. So I think we have to be realistic about how the media controls us. We have to be realistic about how we have learned to interpret things, and then we have to ultimately do something about it. We have to put forth these counter narratives. We have to, support counter narratives, and we have to stop. We have to stop getting so excited when we see one of us like on TV, because no one else does that. No one else says.
Well, Latinos start getting happy.
Latinos do it, but even with them, it's like we have a very unique history. So I'm always going,
they have like their own international stations.
Because you're never going to see a black person on Telemundo, right? You're never going to see that.
That's actually a whole thing about how those kind of networks exclude dark-skinned Latinos, Afro-Latinos, and indigenous people.
Right.
I think it's really interesting. Yeah, it's very whitewashed for a Latino station. Mm-hmm.
You're never gonna see that, but you'll see black people celebrating Gina Rodriguez, and you're like, "What are you doing? Don't you know these people hate your black ass?"
And she went on some bullshit with her shit. So,
and and that's the thing. I think I don't think we're so traumatized that we don't want to believe that. Wow, no one likes us.
Well, look, I remember Tomi Lahren.
Yeah, I remember.
She had a video of her rapping along to some rap song, and motherfuckers' dicks was getting hard off of it. And I'm just like, she just got through calling for your death. Like, what are you talking about?
And again, it's like some of the words that people use, I know it can kind of turn us off a little bit or trigger us because we are sensitive. Because we have a very troubled history. Like, we deserve to have some sensitivity. But
I know what you mean, because that's a trauma response. That's why I teach trauma-informed care. That's why I often go back to the trauma stuff. So that's a trauma response, by the way. That sensitivity is hyperreactivity. Your zone of tolerance is really small. Like, you don't have your ability to control your trigger, whether it's excitement or depression, it's something that happens when you've been traumatized a lot. Your reactions to things don't match the situation,
and that's why, like when I say before, how like when you tell a black person like, yo, white people kind of know you, like they know they study you.
rappers up here at Harvard not realizing these institutions are studying your shit so they can make more money off of it. By the way, I gotta shout out this book. I tell everybody read this book. Read this book.
Nelson George. Oh, is that wait, George, Nelson George. I remember that guy.
Nelson George. He does like a lot of music history stuff.
Yeah, he used to have a thing with Prince. He used to have a Prince actually wrote a diss song about Nelson George.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, Prince wrote that.
Really good. It talks about of how education partner with record labels basically steal our shit, and that's literally what happened. Because we were making money on the Chitlin circuit, and record labels would figure out how to get in there. They got Harvard to commission a study and give Black people some scholarships to go to these Black areas and study the shit. So these places are, like you said, they know us. They're studying us.
Right. You like we're
lab rats. As
we're lab rats. It's like
you dummy, you're the rat.
Right. Right. And it's like I said in the show, it's like, yo, we're grafted. Like we don't really have that. We don't get to come with our own original ideas. Like we don't know what success is to us. Like we don't know what this is to us. We don't know what that is to us. We know what we've been told. And we have to go by our own moral compass to decide what's right and wrong. Right. Like, so when you tell a Black person like, yo, man, we're sick, we're in a bad condition, and we gotta start the healing process, and we have to acknowledge that we're sick. And the hardest thing to do is to get Black people, because we're prideful people.
Yeah.
Especially when it's another Black person telling you this. You're not gonna acknowledge that you're sick. Because you're not gonna.
Well, also with so much shame attached to not knowing stuff,
right?
And not being perfect,
And a lot of times we do put each other down for not knowing things, and we get to where it's like,
yeah,
like how could you not see? And that's the frustration demon. I think once you become a little and more enlightened as a person. Like, I think that's a demon we all kind of battle just a little bit, to where like, how come y'all can't see this as a coon? How come you can't see this as this? Like, that bothers me, right? But at the same time, you gotta remember, like, yo, you're lucky you made it out. Like, you're lucky you have this enlightenment, because there's millions of people just like you who don't necessarily have that enlightenment. We're all victims, and and that's the most important thing to hold. Like, we're victims, and you need to be.
And I think that's the importance of what you're doing. And many of us who are trying to do this in the media space, but you in particular doing it in film, you're trying to take the information that we need and put it out there for us.
Right.
That's the important part. Like, it's more than just telling people things. It's how you tell them. Right. So artistic ways to tell them, creative ways to share the information. And everything doesn't have to be serious. It can be done through comedy, Right. It can be done through documentary or fiction. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, but how are we going to get that information to the people? And I love that's what you do. And you also do it through music. So you're also a music artist. So you're very passionate about getting information out. And art. Like, it's also artistic. It wasn't like you showed us a bad film either, just to tell us some information. You know what I mean? It was good. You had great clips. The monologue is really great. So I really appreciate what you're doing. And I always am a strong believer in highlighting the dope and amazing and great work that our people are doing, because this is what happens. We believe it's not happening. And so we'll go on Twitter and everything. Black people need to do this. Black people need to do that. No. Black people are doing it. You need to find them and support what they're doing.
Right. Don't wait for a white person to tell you this is good.
Exactly. I want to also acknowledge something that Bongani said. I thought this was really a good point about us having a couple of points he made about educating. Oh, we need our own media stations, which is clear, but also as well as educate our children on the truth of our ancestral history. You and I talked about that as well, especially in particular, even our ancestral history here on this land, both before, during, and after slavery, right? Which we still don't even know from like 30, 40, 50 years ago that we should be learning now. So as educating our children is definitely important. And then understanding that those go hand in hand. We could be using our media platforms to be teaching our history. And I take it really personal, to be real with you, when I see these stories or documentaries or a fictional story. For example, it was a mini series Netflix had about Madam C.J. Walker.
Yeah, I saw that.
That shit pissed me the fuck off. It's a complete lie. Most of the things in there weren't true. It was very demonizing to black men. It demonized Annie Turnbull Malone. They had a different. They called her something Monroe, Annie Monroe, or Addie Monroe, and that's a fictional person. There was a real person named Annie Malone that Madam C.J. Walker stole her shit from, because Annie Malone was an actual chemist. So instead of telling us her story, or even showing us them being business rivals, that's a great story right in itself, right? Because they were business rivals and they did compete and they both spoke at Booker T. Washington State. They didn't even mention that. Right. So at the World's Fair. So like I take a really big issue when we're getting the stories supposedly from black people. LeBron James was the executive producer, right? His company. But somehow that story was completely fucked up and wrong. There's so much you can learn from the real stories of both of those women, right? Such amazing, inspirational. You can honor black women, inspire black girls, empower them, make black men feel proud to have black women. And somehow you've turned into some trivial, light-skinned, dark-skinned, hateful bullshit. And everything about it just bothered me. you know?
The same thing with like with Lovecraft Country. It's like anytime with like for us black people, anything we get that we do organically, you're gonna pay a price for it. Like a Nate Parker. Anything that someone gives you, you're gonna get shortchanged. Like you're not gonna get anything. Like you look at a movie like when George Lucas did Red Tails. Cool, but it was like a cartoon, right? When it's like, yo, we don't have to keep telling the same stories over and over and over. We have a vast. You can start in the 1920s and come to now, and you have tons of amazing black stories that you would have never even knew existed.
I'm gonna give you one of my TV show ideas, okay? And I'm putting this on YouTube because one, I'm probably not gonna do it, and I really want it done, and it can be done multiple ways by multiple people. So it's still the idea, please. But I'm dead serious too. So what I want to do is I want that there should be a TV series. You know how you would have like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, or Little House on the Prairie, like those kind of eras, something like that, but basically the era of black people leaving the South and building all black towns.
Oh, like
what did you say?
I said, okay, I'm listening. I'm writing notes.
Yeah, so basically, like you have this all black town, and the story of the show is them trying to build this town, and it's not centered on whiteness and being victims of white people. There's all kinds of stories within that, right? So the black prominent family that basically runs a lot of shit, and and what their situation is versus the families that are just coming out of the South. Right. The ways in which class and even colorism play in a lot of those things, right? Yes. Or hair and hairstyle. People don't know the reason why black women straighten their hair is not because we hate ourselves, although I would say there's definitely conditioning in there that causes us to hate, all of us to hate ourselves. Right. But it was literally linked to opportunities. Right. So and actually black men also straighten their hair because it was linked to opportunities. Right.
Afros are viewed as aggressive.
And that's why people wore them in the 60s, right? Right. In the 70s, because it was purple. By 70s became a style, but in the 60s it was like clearly a radical statement.
Anti-establishment.
Exactly, because I don't have to straighten my hair or put a wig on or any of that stuff, right? Right. I want to be beautiful the way I am. I love the Cat Cleaver clip. She talks about that. Right. And but anyway, so let's talk. So talking about like those stories within that, right? I think there's so many interesting things that you can play out of that dynamic. And the whole, again, it's not white people are going to be a part of as far as like problems they caused you in the oppression. It's not centered on that. It's centered really on that building. the people that are trying to build the grocery store, the family that comes from the South, and they're trying to figure out, how do I even start? Do I become a farmer? What do I do? There's a great, one of my favorite books is I talk about it all the time, about Shamari Wills. God, what's it called? Black Fortunes. Because that's where I actually learned about Amy Turbo Malone and Master J. Walker's little thing. But it's a great book because it highlights different towns and times that were thriving for Black people, or where business was getting started. You know, a story of, maybe like even if the TV series was like about Eatonville, Florida, or something. Just some place where it's centered on them building the town and the drama of love and friendship, all the other shit that comes with those great shows. But that be the setting. I just feel like we need that. You know,
I totally agree, because you can't tell a Black story without the white experience. But everything doesn't have to be about Black suffrage. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's all we're pigeonholed into, either some slapstick Black shit, like where it's super slapstick. You're like, all right, this is ridiculous. Or it's trauma. There's no nuance. And when you see other stories, what makes a movie like The Godfather good, or when you watch some series that have been like long running series, there's so much nuance in these, you know, stories and in these series that where people can actually relate. Oh, I know someone like that. I know somebody like this, you know. Whereas with us, it's just like, oh, Big Mama this. I'm late on the rent. Like, it's so much.
There's way more range. There's more range for them and no range for us in our experiences, right? Like, all of us don't have the same. Not everybody, even if you live in the hood, not everybody is suffering from gang violence. Like, everyone's shooting everybody up, right? Like, I lived in the hood my entire life, and there, you know, I've seen things change, because you don't see the team just showing up in our TV shows. Let them show South Central. It's always like a war zone. I watched this TV show called Bosch on Amazon, right?
That's my favorite prime. I love Bosch.
I love Bosch. I'm on season 6, so don't tell me shit.
Okay, I just finished. I finished a while ago. I'm waiting.
So now I'm gonna have to DM you. So pay attention.
Yeah. Okay.
But okay, so the thing that's interesting about Bosch, whenever they talk about south of the 10, what that means is South Central.
Okay.
And even in the area, so the season I'm watching now, they're constantly in this area called Leimert Park, so the Crenshaw area. And where the character the Black character got killed was in that alley. It's called In the Jungles, right? Okay. They don't really say all that in the show because it's not that important. But I know what I'm looking at.
Right.
But whenever they show you the Black communities, it always looks fucked up. The thing about that area, the Crenshaw area, it's also one of the wealthier Black communities. Wow. Exactly. Leimert Park. It's also just a very interesting dynamic, because south of the 10 is pretty much where all the Black people were forced to live, whether you have money or not. The 3 top wealthiest Black communities at one point were all here in LA, and that wasn't even that long ago. That was Baldwin Hills, Windsor Hills, and Ladera Heights.
Right.
Okay. And so those areas were considered like wealthy Black communities, but guess what? And they weren't even that wealthy. They were averaging like $300,000 a year, which isn't really
right. But I mean, hey. At that time, especially in the context of being Black, you know.
No, that's my point, though. My point is that while these are the top wealthiest Black communities, they're averaging $300,000, $400,000 a year. Right. Meanwhile, the wealthiest white communities definitely ain't that, right?
Yeah. Right.
but my point is that even if you have money, you could not live north of the 10 freeway. So you have the areas that look more suburban, even though it's definitely still hood in certain parts.
Right.
But it's just but you never really see that part of the story shown when it comes to LA. The only time I've seen it shown is probably Insecure. But I would say they've gone too far over into this, you know, bougie LA.
So where the world, I mean, the way it's getting to the point where it's like, wait, hold up, shit is not all good in this particular area.
We need a range. We need a range, is my point. It doesn't have to be all trauma. It doesn't have to be all pretending everything's great. It doesn't have to be slapstick comedy. We can have a range of different stories. And I just want more stories of us building and creating and feeling empowered. So thank you again. We're heading on 3 hours, have not eaten dinner. Yes, the show is called Bosch, Bosch. It's a cop
Everybody.
show. It's a cop detective show.
And the guy who played Marlo in The Wire is Bosch's
I
partner.
love him. It's so funny because I don't think he's the greatest actor ever, but he always plays his role.
Yeah, he's consistent.
Character.
Yeah, he's consistent.
He's in Queen of the South. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen that yet. My dad doesn't give me to watch it. He was in Power too.
I haven't seen. I never seen Power.
What? Oh yeah, he was in the first season of Power.
That's funny. So I'm glad he's getting to work. Jamie
Hector. Jamie Hector.
Yeah. Yes, I like him a lot. So he's in the show if you guys are interested in watching Marlo be a detective.
Yeah, that's a hell of a dynamic. That's range right there.
He has character range, but his acting has no range whatsoever.
Oh man,
he's the most stoic guy.
Like, hello, hey Harry, how you doing, Harry? I'm like, why you always say it like that?
When he watches somebody die, he's just like,
what they call him, Jagger, right?
Yeah,
we got here, Harry. You're like, but I just want to leave on this note. I want to say this to the listeners: like, we are exceptional people. Like, Black people are exceptional people, especially like Black people who like descendants of slavery, and like think about everything we've endured and how many times they've tried to get rid of us, and we're still here. We're exceptional, and not only are we still here, in a lot of ways we're thriving in spite of all of these things. So, like, we just have to stop being afraid, because fear is what's really controlling opportunities as well, but it's still that fear. It's an innate fear of offending people. Of, oh, what if I make them mad? They don't like you anyway, no matter what you do. They don't
love it. Because remember,
like you
the fear is what keeps you in survival mode. Absolutely.
Right. It's all fear. So don't be afraid to go for it, man, and just reach for it. Just don't be afraid, because look, not doing anything is chilling is gonna be there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Doubt is gonna be there. That's don't worry about it. You're not gonna miss out on anything. You know what I'm saying? If you try and you fail, and failure is subjective because you have to identify what success is to you. You still can chill. Don't worry about it. It'll still be there. It's not going nowhere.
Right.
It's not going anywhere.
Absolutely. I thank you for that, because I definitely think it's important to be positive, because we are such a miracle. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's how Dr. Joy DeGruy put it. She said, frankly, we're a miracle. We've been through so much shit, and yet we're still here.
Right.
Not only we talked about epigenetics earlier. Not only is trauma passed down through your DNA, guess what else is passed down? Resilience. So our strengths, not just our weaknesses, get passed down.
Right.
So keep that in mind. Where can people find you? Chedda Chaz, where can people find you?
Just Chedda Chaz on everything. CheddaChaz.com, 7daystraight.com. I have a couple other films coming out this year. I have something I think people are really gonna dig coming out in the spring. Well, it depends on how much I can get done. It snows out here, so you gotta work on a bit of a schedule. But I have some more stuff coming out real soon. I think people are really gonna dig.
Ooh, snow!
I love it. I can't lie, I love it.
I like perfect weather. I'm sorry, I'm a spoiled Californian.
Oh man.
But thank you so much again. Please make sure that you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you go to his YouTube page. I put it up there, 7 days straight. In fact, I'll put it up there again so you can see how it's spelled, because me trying to tell you how to spell it's going to be like, what?
And thank you for having me, because I really am a fan of the show.
When you hit me, is that why you hit me? Because he just hit me out the blue and was like, yo, I got this film. I was like, who the hell are you? Okay, I'll check it out.
I actually recommended a documentary to you before. It was a while ago. It was the Frank Matthews story.
Yes, I remember. Oh, you're the one who recommended that.
Yeah, so I recommended
that thread, and I couldn't remember who recommended what. So it's good to know.
Yeah, I recommended that. And I see you on the show. I was like, well, I got this thing. Let me see we seem to be like-minded people. So I was like, let me see what she thinks. Let me see what they think on Champagne Sharks. I'm a really big fan of the show.
Yeah, that's what you asked me. You just wanted my opinion on it, and I thought it was
Right.
really dope. In fact, my first thought was, let's put him on here because he sounds great. Also, I think some of our other people had already watched it too. I think T had already seen it as well.
Yeah, he actually reached out to me and he told me he dug it.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay. Because I told him that you were going to be on today, and he was just like, "Oh, okay." I'm in California, so I'm able to be up later than he is, so that's why he's not on. But thank you again. I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I appreciate you for creating it and for creating your entertainment company and everything that you're doing. So I can see you are working very hard. You're not just a guy who talks. You are really a person who executes, and I respect that more than anything. So thank you again. Please follow him. Yeah, please follow him on Twitter. They can just type in Chedda Chaz. Chedda Chaz.
Yeah, Chedda Chaz. No R. CHAZ.
Yeah.
Chedda Chaz. I don't know what that is.
I don't even know. It sounds like I have no clue.
Right.
When you type in Chedda Chaz, as you see it spelled right there, and you'll be able to find all of his content. And I, again, appreciate you. Thank you very much. All of our Champagne Sharks fans and listeners, I appreciate you as well. Shout out to everybody that participated in the chat, everyone that donated. Shout out to you as well. Anybody who gifted subs, shout out to you. Yeah, so thank you. I think that's it. Oh, somebody's saying, I don't know why somebody's put their content. Oh, that's what I'm talking to Lamine. Okay, y'all have a great night.
Thank you.